and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
Tominaga, 3, up and down. It was transition D. How about the Huskers rolling to the rim? Walker with 2 and a chance for one more after the timeout. Short on that shot. Lawrence, a career high 13 points on the push. Tominaga waits, 3, up, down. He wasn't even looking at the rim when it went through. Go in. No, watch the release. He doesn't even look to see if it goes in. He knows. Watch him turn his head. Oh, that's cold, Jerry.
Wanted to get the crowd into it right away. They were phenomenal. Right from that first half, they gave us an unbelievable lift. We were flying around. I thought our contests were maybe as good as they've been all season. And came out, got a basket to start the second. Derek scored it to put us up 14. And then obviously it unraveled from there. And, give Michigan State credit. They came out and made shots. I think they made their first 5 threes in the second half. And then they got comfortable and confident. That's how this game is.
Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency, alongside Damon Benning and Andrew Rogers. We are live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club. Catch us live on Twitter, live on YouTube, or if you're in your car, don't be watching the stream. Just turn the radio dial, find 590. You can get us there. We're having some fun this morning, Wednesday, not Friday, as DB thought yesterday, but give them some grace. There's a big game tonight down at PBA, and when you think high school basketball, you don't think Wednesday night.
Correct. So I was a little off. The whole day was screwed up. And I felt like we were a little lax yesterday, which led me to believe we're heading into a Friday kind of long weekend. We had the staff lunch, and everybody's kind of shooting the breeze, and I forgot.
It did feel like a Friday with all the events.
You know what I mean?
That took place after the show.
So I was a little off, but I'm better. I mean, full disclosure, as we listen to Coach Hoiberg. So I only knew, I try to stay in my little bubble when it comes to sports. And this is an absolute true story. So my sister is in town from St. Louis. She came with my nephew to the game.
She bring emos?
No, and I forgot.
Darn. But
she said I think she's coming back in a couple weeks. But so I'm in my little corner, right? I'm sitting, and she's not around me enough during competitions to know that, I don't want to know until I can know. If I'm going to watch, I'm going to watch all the way through. If I'm not, I don't want to know until I get home. So she flashes me her phone, and she says, "Hey, did you see the Nebraska score? It's 25-12. No, nice, right? Didn't think another thing of it. I'm dialed into the game. I get in the car. My radio's on 590. So it's maybe like a minute into the half or something like that, or it's early, and I hear Ken say, "Hey, I think it was Hurrdat. Somebody's at the line. Flying." He goes 48-41. So I was like, dang, that's the last change the channel. Was talking to Mike in the car. So I go home and I start the game over.
Right.
I had no idea what was about to happen. And because I didn't know the final.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm watching this unfold real time, and I think Nebraska's on maybe only their 5th or 6th minute of the scoring drought. I think it got to 8 maybe. Yeah. And I was floored. I was like, I kept this a secret from myself for this?
Mm-hmm.
For this. And I couldn't believe it. And I was going through the gamut of emotions too, because this whole time you got to think, I'm thinking they're going to win. And it was a little bit of fool's gold, because I don't know how much you got into it, but there was a stretch where Michigan State had cut it to 3. I think it was 48-45 or something like that. And Nebraska takes a timeout, and they come out, they get a little 2-point possession. I think Tominaga hit one. And they go to zone. They go to a zone. They go to a 2-3 zone. And Michigan State misses the shot. They get a rebound. Tominaga comes down. I think he hits a 3.
Or
or Derek Walker had to put back maybe. Then it was a 3, and then all of a sudden it was 10 again. And I was like, shoot, unconventional, right? They zoned a team that was pretty hot from 3.
That's what confused me.
And well, you see that some like I told you that little anecdote a couple weeks ago about when we were talking about Creighton one day with Ba, and he goes, this sounds weird, but and I can't remember what team this was. This was maybe about 2 or 3 years ago. And he goes, I'd zone them. Because I would zone Creighton. He goes, I know it sounds weird, but this is why. And so I know sometimes people will play that will go to that zone for different reasons. And I'm watching that thing unfold and I'm floored. I like my jaw's open because I didn't expect anything further than what I was witnessing in that second half. After Nebraska pushed it back to 10 and the second half that they weren't going to score for who knows when. I was like, OMG. They just couldn't throw it in the ocean. I was like, I was pretty mad. It's like that I kept that a secret from myself. Okay, tunnel vision. And I was like, I could have fast forwarded.
Yeah, to add to your point, though, moving to a zone, and I know it works every now and then.
It slowed them down for a little bit.
It did, but with how well Michigan State was passing and how well they were shooting the ball, it was like almost like, are we wanting them to keep shooting the 3? Are we wanting them to keep just working the ball around the perimeter? Because that's what they were doing really well.
Oh, 12 of 17, though.
Rotation wasn't very good either on that zone.
Just a guy like this.
There's one point, if you go back and watch the 3 ball, was it from Walker? Griesel was inside the perimeter, and he was running to the block, to the top of the key, and then he realized that, hey, there's also a man over here, and we have too many people bunched up here, wide open 3. The movement wasn't very good by Nebraska inside the 3-point line. But aside from all of that, the reason Michigan State got all the way back, it wasn't because they shot the living stew out of the basketball in the second half. It was because Nebraska could not make a shot when it mattered most.
Although they did shoot the pee out of it. How about this for a funny little did you know? Michigan State took 8 less shots in the second half than they did in the first. 36 shots in the first half, 28 in the second half. They made 9 more field goals than they did in the first half. I mean, write that one down. What are they, 10 of 36 in the first half, and they were 19 of 28 in the second half.
You're insane when it comes to numbers.
Like, do you know what I'm saying, though? Like, who does that?
When you're making shots.
8 less shot attempts, 9 more makes.
They had a couple of O boards in that first half, which led to, a secondary offensive possession. But aside from that, when you're making shots, it's easy, right?
Yeah.
You shoot 12 of 17 from 3 in the second half.
Nebraska got a little careless with the rock, man. But some of those little bunnies and those floaters that D-Walk normally knocks down, those weren't going. And then they started kind of forcing a few things too from the perimeter. And I was kind of getting a good vibe because when I checked my DMs on the way home from high school game, I looked and balked up my man Lance. We talked to yesterday about the quarterback play, which, by the way, got me thinking. I still don't know anybody that thinks Casey Thompson's going to win that job except for Lance. He's still the only guy, because that call kind of stirs some conversation in my sphere of influence. But I don't think he's crazy, right? Because I've been saying all along, this is what kind of temperament you need. Don't count Casey Thompson out. And now, shoot, the more reps he gets. But anyway, before I get too sidetracked on that, his DM said, because we were talking about consistency, all his DM said to me was Griesel equals consistent. So he must have thought he's still probably in the first half, because I didn't look back and see what time he sent it. But all of that set the stage for me not knowing what the outcome was last night as I'm watching that thing. And my jaw just dropped. Some of those, what do you think of the degree of difficulty for the shots that Michigan State was making? Not very tough or pretty, because
I think it depended on if they were checking themselves, if they were hot, or if they were just rolling. I mean, for more times than not, it seemed like they were just rolling an open shot here, an open shot there, but then there was a hand in their face. There was one where Hoiberg defended the heck.
Oh, the one that Akins hit?
The heck out of Akins. I mean, you watch that and you think Hoiberg could not have defended that better, and it just fall.
Jaden Akins shot that thing last night, man. What did he finish with? I think he made 5 or 6.
Say that again, Akins.
What was he from
17.
behind? No,
5 of 9 from 3.
5
6
of 9.
14 from the field.
Yeah, that's just silly. Yeah, they got it going, man. I just the not knowing the outcome and kind of going through that thing in my head, man. I was like, golly, man. And I was kind of, oh yeah, man, good switch to the zone out of timeout, man. 2-3 kind of slowed him down.
And it's great to change things up in the
and he was trying, right? And I felt like that was gonna be like one of those little key buttons that he pushed during the course of a game that he sometimes doesn't get credit for, that was going to turn out to work, right? But he just couldn't get enough stops, man.
Well, and that's it, because Griesel said that too at the end of the game. The offensive drought was linked to the fact that they could not get defensive stops.
Just couldn't get a stop.
And when you just see 3 ball after 3 ball going into the hoop, I mean, you're just feeling defeated as you inbound the basketball. Like, how do we stop them? And then you're thinking about that as you're going on offense.
It's just a straight basketball is one of those, and we've seen some crazy runs this season of leads blown and then teams stretching leads. It's such a streaky thing. We watched Creighton this past week go 20 minutes without making a 3. Sharman made that 1 3 at the 16-minute mark, and I think they missed 13 or 14 more and didn't hit another one until it was a ways into the second half.
And we've seen that a lot this year.
And I'm like, just the gamut of emotions that have. Shoot, last night, Westside was up 11. That game was 69-58. And all of a sudden, it's 69-69 going into OT. And you're like, you went 3 quarters without turning over the basketball and making free throws to this? Like, it's such a streaky sport. I mean, even in the NBA last night, Golden State ends up winning by 18, and at no point until they went on their run did they give you the inkling that they were going to win that game. It sounds too easy to say a make or miss league, but man, when shots are going and what Coach Hoiberg said in the presser, well, and you could tell they were shooting the ball with confidence, and that's a lot of what this game is. And I was just like, man, you're not kidding. When you're feeling good about yourself, you're like, and
Go back to what I texted you midway through that West Side game. I said, it's a good thing Tate Oddbody showed up.
Yeah, well,
because that dude was just like, hey, I'm going to fire until I miss.
Yeah, he's going to shoot that thing. Sometimes I'm like, easy, big fella. but we needed somebody to shoot the basketball last night because we just weren't very aggressive. But it was Link and I played hard, man. They
did.
And they defied the
never
scouting.
Went away.
They defied the scouting report too.
Never went away. It's funny. I texted Caleb before the game, wishing him good luck. So you passed along his number to me, and he texted me back after the game. And the last thing that I texted him before I hit the pillow was, and I knew I could poke fun, maybe play at him a little bit because they won the game. But I just texted.
Oh, the 2 missed free throws?
I go, free throw.
Yeah, 71% foul shooter. He's 10 of 12 2 games ago.
So locked down from the line.
4 of 4 in the first half. And it was funny because he pulled in last night. He didn't want to eat. He just wanted to shower and get back to bed. He goes, man, I can't believe how I let what I thought should have been a lane violation get in my head. I was like, I don't want to hear it, man. I don't want to hear it. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, I'm not. But it's like I just couldn't believe the frenetic pace that they played with when they just had to calm it down. They drive me. If they ever just like situational awareness drives me bonkers. You're up 3 in overtime against Bellevue West with less than 2 minutes to go, and you go 1-on-3. You're up 8 last night, and you shoot 2 threes with less than 2 minutes to go. You don't need it. Like, what are you doing? So sometimes they make it hard on themselves. But
yeah, I even thought that last look before OT was like, man, you couldn't find something better. Like you guys couldn't move around a
Yeah,
little
I
bit,
wanted
set up some type of structured play to really get it going.
And CJ had 2 guys open on the wing too. And I don't really fault for. I'm not.
Not in
It
that
wasn't
moment,
a. It wasn't
no.
a great shot, but once they didn't initiate the offense until under 7 seconds, I was losing my mind because I just don't think guys in high school. And I see this a lot. The whole under 10 thing, it's a bunch of malarkey. Unless you're finishing at an elite, not to go off Matt Rule, unless you're finishing at an elite clip at the end of game situations, give yourself a chance at a miss. The whole under 10, get the
last
you
look.
guys aren't efficient enough. If you score with 4 seconds left, that's fine. Make them have to make a play. Don't be, not giving yourself a chance at an offensive rebound.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also agree, though, on the side of the under 10 more times than not, because if you do finish at the rim, if you give the other team 4 seconds, a three's coming. And then all of a sudden, if they do make that shot, if you could have had OT or the win versus, hey, you lose by 1 at the buzzer, I can understand both. But I know where you're coming from when you say, hey, unless you are – because you see it a lot in college. These guys can make acrobatic plays. You see Kansas
close out Texas Tech.
You take some contact, you toss it high off the glass, and it falls in. And a lot of times I'm like, man, like how do they have that much time to think about, okay, I'm going to release the ball here? It comes second nature when you do it so many times over and over and over again. But to finish at the rim through contact is one of the hardest things to do, especially when you don't have size. And a lot of guys that don't have size are the best at doing it.
Yeah, and they let them play last night too, so you weren't going to get a ton of calls. And then in the second half, it's halfway through the third quarter, and each team's got like 5 team fouls. I'm like, how did we get to 10 fouls already? Like guys are getting knocked over and the whistle never blows. And then all of a sudden got a ton of whistles. And so I think they struggled to kind of adjust to the way that the game was being called too. But thank goodness they're both playing in state and not just the one, because that
made it a lot easier on you.
Been
that was a cool tweet, by the way, last night.
Oh,
being able to tweet that.
Oh, yeah.
Maya and Caleb and Micah, at what age were they?
Oh, I think so, 7th and 6th.
Yeah. That's a cool tweet.
Yeah, because Mike is
proud dad moment.
Mike is like 4 in that picture. And, she was so cool. She plays tonight, obviously. And she's sitting right in front of me last night at the game. And she's on her phone. And I'm like, well, what's going on? I said, what are you doing, babe? She's like, oh, just watching film. So I just took a picture of her watching the action that she's going to see today from North Star. And I sent it to her coach Paulson. I was like, hey, you're in her head. Nice work. Like, best wishes tomorrow. Like she's watching film and she's trying to support her brother. So it was cool. It was kind of a surreal night. There's so many guys that our summer kids play with that we grew up with. The Connor Millikins, the Tate Oddbodies, the Neil Mossers, Aiden Zickman in Central City, like all these guys that play on their 15Us, their 16Us, they're all playing in state. And as a matter of fact, I think
incredible.
I think all but one in the last 5 years of summer basketball, 6 are playing in state. And if he'd have been healthy, he could have given his chance to play at state. And that's Will Cooper at Millard South. He's the only one, and it's through no fault of his own other than just injury. Because I told you, remember when district started, I go, shoot, man, Boudreaux, a healthy Will Cooper, they're healthy now. They kind of scare me.
You did say that. You're like, I don't really know if I can just write these guys.
Yeah, right. Because this Millard South scared me a little bit, but yeah. So it was kind of cool to see everybody playing in the postseason. Oklahoma Tyler was sure to reiterate that because Plattview's in, so his kiddo, Milliken. It's going to be a good state tournament, but it starts today with the girls, man. I'm pretty pumped because I actually think you're asking me off air. It's going to be tough because I think it's
especially in Class A.
it's pretty wide open. And you're not going to get this deep in the weeds. I think the toughest outside of A is Go ahead, give it to me.
I would say the toughest outside of A is C2.
Correct. Good on you for doing your
So,
You get a little dab for that.
C2, Crofton is, they're always a 1 seed, it seems. Always. Yeah. What they've been able to accomplish up there is incredible. I feel like the Arns girls are always just cycling through. How many kids do they have?
I don't know.
But every year it's a new Arns, and
I completely agree with you. C2 is by far the most difficult.
Oakland Craig is a really good team.
That's who I'm gonna go with.
But they have Ponca.
I know. No, I believe me.
Ashlyn Kingsbury. Her dad, former Iowa guy.
Look at you.
This girl can absolutely ball, and they played. Crofton and Ponca played, what was it, 2 years ago? And that was the story that I put together for Kendall Taney, the kid that had heart surgery.
The piece that you sent me a few months ago.
Crofton superfan. So they were playing each other in the finals that day, and gosh, Ponca had that one too. Crofton came back and won that game.
Here's the deal. I went with Oakland Craig kind of reluctantly. I'm a little biased just because there's been like 6 or 7 years of following their football program as they've made these runs, and their old athletic director is a good buddy who's now at Malcolm. And it's one of those, if they get past the first, then I could see it. But it should be, I don't think it'll be real chalky. And it could be, A is going to be tough. Now, B is a little bit, Scott's a monster.
Absolutely.
Right? So,
absolutely.
Best wishes with that. But I think A's wide open. Millard South's got to stay healthy because they're not deep. Lincoln High's got to shoot it with a little bit of efficiency. Millard North has got to take good care of the basketball. They are knocked down. Bellevue East is going to be dangerous. Bellevue West, for me, and watching them, it's all about how hard they play in their shot selection because they're talented. This thing it's wide the heck open.
Our poll question of the day, which you can vote at HVarsity Radio, is who are you taking in Class A? With the NSAA Girls Basketball State Tournament beginning today, who are you taking? Millard South, the 1 seed. Millard North, the 2. Lincoln High, the 3, or the field.
And I like Coach. I like Bryce. I like Millard South's basketball coach. I told you sometimes, he's one of those people I think you have to spend some time with, because if you see him on the surface and you're coaching against him, you're like, ooh, man,
this guy seems mean.
This guy's not for me, right? He's gonna tell you how it is. He plays a certain way, but. And I almost was hoping. Now I'm obviously cheering for Millard North. There's no question about that. But for sanity's sake, I was almost hoping Millard South wouldn't be a 1 seed because I believe, and I have to double check. Somebody help me out here on social media. I think Millard South's had 4 or 5 1 seeds in the past 5 or 6 years without a championship.
You are
it's
right on the nose.
So I was like, ooh, like somebody else get the 1 just so I can, but go Mustangs. That's all I know at the end of the day for sure.
When we come back, I'll set up the show, and I'll also tell you the best thing I saw last night. That's next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
They were getting a lot of easy baskets. What was your emphasis on the defensive end coming in?
It was really complicated. We decided to do a bunch of different things, so we went in the lab and we said, would somebody please guard somebody? That's all we did.
That's genius.
Well, let me tell you, these guys have been knocked on that canvas in the last 3 weeks. So all you people back there were Spartan strong.
Was that Dickie V or Tom Izzo? I couldn't tell.
Would you guard somebody?
It's Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. I apologize if you hear some sniffles on the other end. I feel under the weather today, even though the weather seems pretty nice today. The sun is out already.
Sun is out.
Did we look this up
freezing
yesterday?
cold.
Was I with you?
That's
Is
how
daylight
we
savings
already
time
know.
ending?
I think
here
it's
soon?
the 12th. Yeah, we talked about it. and what an overrated phenomenon that is. Who was putting us
Nowadays.
now? Time out though. Somebody took like 3 or 4 minutes to put us deep on why it's not a thing and shouldn't be a thing with technology, compasses, and people being able to get on combines with
Headlights.
Who was that?
Scott.
Was it?
Yeah, it was Scott. Now, as you are talking back through that conversation, I remember sitting directly in front of you.
And I was like, oh, I feel like I'm getting educated. Well, it's okay if we do without. I don't need daylight savings time, although I was a little disappointed. Remember the general rule of thumb. If we can't see out, you can't see in. Close the blinds until we can control being
So you'll
the animals
open the
at the
blinds
zoo.
at the next break.
Yeah, I'll open. Yeah, totally. So it'll be cool. I'll pull those blinds down at the next break, and people will be able to just look in at us. That's until they come have breakfast with us on Friday. By the way,
Very true.
The menu.
We should definitely tease that. Hale Varsity Club this Friday, 7 to 10. Come watch Coffee and Cream live here with us. We love interacting with you guys throughout the show. But
Well, you do.
What's on? Well, you do too. Let's be real.
You're kind.
Come on.
You're kind.
You love everybody that shows up. You would do this every day if you could.
Everybody love everybody. I just like to.
ELE.
I just
Great
like
movie.
to see who drinks their breakfast.
Everybody.
Thank you, Trev.
Frenchies are what
You're
we're
not
having.
even supposed to really say. We're going to tweet the images out later.
No, we're having French bulldogs. Frenchies.
Hey, my little dude, I got one knucklehead. I'm gonna punch him right in his soup coolers. This dude makes a beeline for the same spot in the yard when the other two canines come out, and he has dug to where it's just mud. I cringe. So now I don't care if it's at 5:10 in the morning, if it's your boy's going to stand out there and make sure that he goes down the stairs and goes to his left.
And not the right.
Yeah, he's terrified to go over there now. I snatched this little dude so tough the other day. Yesterday. I had to put him in the tub to give him a bath like 25 minutes before we were leaving. And
I can only imagine how thrilled you were to do that.
Dude, steaming Willie beaming. And I'm already dressed, so I have to hold him like 6 feet away from me because his paws are
Like you're changing a diaper for the first time.
His paws are like caked. I'm like, come on, bro. And you know what? He's kind of a chump. He's not tough. He's little. He's like 19 pounds. He's 7 years old. Like he's not gonna do anything. So why the cap? Like just chill. You're not really about that. And it's a Husky German Shepherd mix next door. So it's a beautiful dog. I mean, a beautiful dog. And they have two now because they're really cool neighbors. Like, I don't know why nobody really talks to them because they're kind of, they're super friendly. Remember I told you they do like the decorations and they have like the 12-foot skeleton and the 80-foot wide spider web and the huge turkeys, and like her mailbox has like books in it. Like I think you can just come by and take books.
The library.
Is that what that is? Because I don't have the stones to ask because I feel like in education I should know. But there's always books in there.
So you grab a book, you leave a book. Is that routine?
Okay?
Yeah, they're in a lot of neighborhoods.
That's people like that look like me. We don't do that.
You don't read? Is that what you said? What?
Well played. Touche. Touche with a little hyphen. Yeah, you don't read? I can't read. I'm not ignorant.
Oh. Hey, let me tell you the best thing I saw
Shane,
last
quick,
night.
what movie was that from? You'll never guess, so never mind. I can read.
You want to let him?
No, he's not gonna know.
Are you gonna tell people what movie
No,
it's from?
I'm not.
Okay, good.
I'm not.
Boys in the Hood.
Well, is that because he came in talking about that?
That was a great line.
It was a good line.
Thank you.
Don't be a menace to South Central while drinking your gin and juice in the hood.
He's going with every urban movie he can think of. You got one more, Shane. There's like, there's about 6 that came out during that stretch.
Is it
you already said it. It was Boys in the Hood.
Okay.
Was that right?
Yeah.
Wow. Nice work, Shane.
Yeah.
It was on top of mind, though, for you. So I get why that quote came out here. Let me tell you the best thing I saw last night.
I don't even know how he got that, though. He picked the only urban movie that he knew.
Hey, this story takes us to the small town of Morrill, Nebraska. The Panhandle.
Like the mushroom, or a different Morrill?
Morrill.
Okay.
In the Panhandle by
Yeah.
Scottsbluff.
Yeah.
Familiar?
It's a jaunt.
Senior Katrina Cole, I believe that's how you pronounce her last name. It could be Coel, but I'm going to go with Cole here. Did something completely out of her comfort zone. When the rest of her already small cheer squad of 4 couldn't make the state competition at last minute, she decided to go at it alone. After talking to her coach, the response was, well, why not? The fees were already paid for. We had our hotel rooms. Let's just go. Known as a team player, and rightfully so, Cole, with all the courage in the world, took the mats at state alone. This coming a day after she competed in sub-districts a day before. So a 4-sport athlete here. Never had a lick of nerves. More excitement than anything else. She wowed the crowd and got callbacks that a lot of larger squads struggled to get. People were all in on her performance. She said this at the very end. You're stronger than you think you are. Talk about going out with a bang your senior year. Best thing I read yesterday.
You know what's funny? I like the fact that we should probably make that a segment, because sometimes those things hit me and I don't have the confidence to just share. Even though sometimes I just overshare, obviously, when I get in my own little world.
I love stories like that.
Yeah. Can you imagine just being K Solo out there just doing the darn thing?
I watched it.
Go me.
I watched it. And
sorry for those you watching on television.
You watch a performance like that and you're like, ooh, gosh, that's like so. Part of me is like, man, that's a little cringe. Like, she's the only one out there. I feel so bad for her. Like, why isn't there more? But on the other hand, I'm like, do you remember what I told you when we first came in on Monday? The best thing I got to do over the weekend was give a little girl a puck that was cheering by herself.
Yeah, because you like the fact that she could.
Zero fear.
Yeah.
You talk about liking fearless. I talk about liking courage in this instance.
People are like, zero cares given.
I'm all about a performance like this because I don't think I'd have the grapes to do it.
No, and I don't really know where Morrill is. I mean, when you say Scottsbluff, I do, because
right next to Scottsbluff.
I've been to Scottsbluff and Gehring.
At least in the article, the town population was 930. I mean, I guess you can guess that with it only being a 4-person cheer squad or 5-person cheer squad.
930, huh?
She went out there and got the crowd engaged, brought a sign. They redid her entire routine so that it fit one person.
Oh, that's cool. Do you know what she performed to?
I only heard her cheers, not a dance. So she did the MHS with a sign. She had a sign, and then she did go blue, go gold, and then the crowd would react to it. Yeah. And when I say callbacks, like there are so many cheer squads that I see all over the country that the bigger you are, smaller you are, no matter what, don't ever get great response from the crowd, especially at sporting events.
It's funny you say that. The first game in district play, Millard North hosted Omaha South. Omaha South had a cheer squad of about 6. So it's 3-3. They had one gentleman in the back row that was particularly loud, very energetic, very enthusiastic. And he had like a pocket of supporters that were sitting. Obviously, I think it was the cheer coach and a couple parents and whomever else was supporting the basketball team. And I think, it wasn't a super high attended game, so you could hear audibly. And there was such spirit and enthusiasm in the gym that even when they weren't standing and they came to what's the things we sit on? Bleachers. They still were cheering, stomping on the bleachers. Now, after I got finished being annoyed, then I was like, God, you know what? That takes some serious stones to do that in a gym where you can be easily heard. And I mean, they enjoyed it. And by the end, after about 5 minutes, I was kind of bobbing my head.
I'm with it.
I was like, get him.
We should make that
No, we should.
A segment.
No, we
Come
should.
on.
Oh, best thing I've read?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fine. I thought you meant cheer.
4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Welcome back to the show, 888-638-4876. If you'd like to get involved, it's Coffee and Cream in the Morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers. We are live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club. Happy to have you with us. 590 ESPN Omaha, live on Twitter, live on YouTube. We will be on KFOR in Lincoln from 9 to 10, as we are every day. And while I'm laying out spots you can listen, how about I lay out the rest of the show and what you can hear today?
Well, you mean you don't have any more jokes?
This man's got jokes.
No more one-liners for you today?
I need you to set me up. I need you to put on a tee.
You're like, DB, man, it's just too easy. You even got numbnuts over there chiming in like Big Ben. Shane, you feeling good about yourself this morning with your...
I live in a van down by the river.
I don't know how you can feel pretty good about
Ed
that.
Foley.
I don't know what's wrong with this dude. I feel like you've empowered him.
Chiming in like Big Ben may be one of your best lines.
He just does it for no reason.
I really got to
No
be careful
doubt.
on what I say about that. So
Shane could use just drops and never communicate with us throughout the show.
It's totally his
and be
MO.
perfect.
Totally his MO. I'm going to get him a real job once. I'm just happy he's actually producing. I
Hey,
mean,
25 seconds.
yeah. Hey, back in 20. I mean, we've made progress since Monday when you just let me stand next to you in your little clubhouse and talk to you without telling me that we're back. That was great.
I'm listening to the headset and I'm like, I think this is our intro.
And he's just casually carrying on a conversation with me. Feel free to let me know what's goings on, Shane. Should make Shane part of the lending library.
Yes.
Thanks to your mom. I had
Thanks
no
to my
idea
mom.
what a
Yeah.
lending library was.
L squared, lending library.
It's a nice concept.
Are you going to use it now?
No.
Okay.
No. Because there's this. I shouldn't even say this out
Go
loud,
ahead.
but Zoe's in school. If there is such a thing, we have entirely too many books. And so if we lend, I don't want back. You just take.
How would I just put books in here?
Yeah.
Actually, that is recommended a lot too. because
Seriously. It's out of
They run low on books
it's,
a lot,
it's
or
out
people
of
just don't bring them
control.
back.
And we're so old school. Well, at least my mom is. Do you remember Highlights? Like the magazine? They would be in like
Yeah.
dentist's
Oh,
office.
yeah.
Do you know that
They had
that
like
comes?
the find
Do you
the
know
difference.
that comes to our house? Oh,
They
yeah.
still make those?
2023, my guy.
Is that a Zoe project? Is that a you project?
Me? Do you think that's a me project?
I don't know. Maybe it's nostalgic.
How about a no? But hey, we love you, Mom.
Highlights.
Yeah,
Man, I haven't heard that in a long time.
man. Last time it's been probably, I don't know. I was in my 30s going to the doctor, and I think I saw it in like the panel that like you could pick out stuff. Yeah, we get those.
These look like children's books now. They did not used to look like this.
Just keeping
They
it,
upped their artistic game.
keeping it 100, man. That
They
is
must have hired Scott. Scott probably made these.
that's Mama Benning.
That made these?
No, that's Highlights. It's vintage. My mom.
Oh,
By the way, did you see his Vans game yesterday?
he always rocks the Vans. Always.
But he got to design those. You know, like how the kids do like
Mhm.
Nike shoes and stuff. Those are like custom made Vans.
Yep.
I like his fashion. I couldn't rock it, but I like it. I think that's what I admire about him.
Got to be an art guy.
Yeah, very much so. Very, very much so. Which is why, things that you want in yourself, you like in other people.
Totally.
I think that's why I'm drawn to old Scotty Too Hottie. People think I'm crazy. I'm not.
Wait a second here. Wait a second.
My mom.
You are crazy because you
I'm not.
said
My
during the
mom-
break,
my
man,
mom
I'm
can-
crazy. People think I'm crazy, but I'm not.
I'm-
What are you? That too.
Well, you just felt like playing that for no reason, or I hate when he does that. It drives me up the wall. Do you? So wait a minute. Collide. It's a song. No, we heard that yesterday. Stop doing that. Stop it. Stop it.
Did we ever get to the bottom of if you did it right?
Pardon?
Did we ever get to the bottom if you did the beat of the?
Even the best fall down sometimes. I hate
That's
when he
not
does
right.
that. I don't understand what your issue is. Like, can you calm the heck down for a second over there?
No.
Little Pocket Hercules is he's having a grand old time today.
Come on, man.
Just dude, I'm over it. Is that funny?
Yeah,
Is that-
because he's not picking on me.
Right. See, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen My Bodyguard, but I'm like the dude that took care of. I'm the awkward kid with the curly fro, and you like Mikey like kicked over my bike in the park. Like, I'm the dude that takes care of him. You're
No doubt.
probably the more firm one between the two in terms of protocol, and he has yet to go all in on you. I don't know if he's like afraid Maybe he saw you and Sauter argue
my
yesterday, and he's
Lord.
like, "Yeah, I don't want any parts of that."
I don't know if it was that or if he thinks he's the little Frenchie and I'm you standing in the backyard. But
Looks like Bugs Bunny with the little dog. Yeah, I'm Spike. He's so big and strong. Hey, hey, Butch. All right, we better finish the sports show at some point.
We're talking to Brian Christopherson at 8 o'clock, top of the hour, as we do every Wednesday, senior writer for Husker 24/7.
I'm gonna get myself checked out.
We will talk Nebraska basketball with him as he covered that game in full detail, as well as hit Husker football. And, there was some news on the Dylan Raiola front that I'll ask him about too. So stick around for that segment at 8. At 8:30, Andy Kendeigh, sports director at KETV, will join the show. 8:45. We didn't get to this yesterday, and we need to get to it at some point. We have to get back to our roster reviews, looking over each position room that Nebraska has going forward into next season. We kind of talked offensive line with Matt Verzal Friday, but didn't really get into the weeds. So
we started with offensive line indirectly before we decided that this was going to be something that we did, right? Because for like 3 weeks, we talked about all the scholarship guys that they now have and how they got older in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
And
so we'll review that one more time because that, of course, has been the biggest so-called priority, I'd say, from last season to this on is the offensive line going to be better?
And you heard it, and you heard our head coach say, I don't subscribe to the whole we're not going to be a good offensive line. We are going to have a good offensive line. Man, didn't really mince words. He didn't stutter. He didn't hem and haw. He put it out there. We're going to have a good offensive line. So, giddy up.
Giddy up.
Hey,
what are you, Kramer? Giddy up.
He said something the other day. We were talking, and he said, listen, man, if you'll notice one thing about me, if you go back to my original press conference, I've told you no lies. So, calling your shot, huh, big timer? But go back and look at it. Go back and listen. If it hasn't gone true to script, and I kind of wonder,
it's scripted?
I kind of wonder, and I'm going to get into that because at some point, I get it's linear, and I think it was T-Mac that tweeted or texted the show, and he's like, listen, man, you know why this seems believable? Oh, yeah, that's right, because you beat your chest that you weren't really drinking the Kool-Aid. He said what makes it so believable is the fact that he's implementing his system. Are you at a point right now, or have you thought, and be honest, have you said to yourself, man, it can't be this easy?
Yes, I've said that before.
Doesn't it seem like that?
But it's easy to gravitate to because of recent history of this is so night and day. It's like,
but don't you think you're not so jaded and beaten up over falling for fool's gold that you don't have any problems hopping on board? Or have you never been this all in before?
I don't have any problem hopping on board. I think that's what it is. Have I been all in before? I'd say I have, just back in St. Louis professionally when, Craig Berube turned that team around in 2019, or when
who doesn't have an interim just come in and win the whole darn thing? Apparently the Blues do.
Yeah.
But
and Mike Schilk got close at one point too. But this seems easier. Maybe it's because it's the off season and it's not like a mid-season change like I'm used to.
And you don't have to pit it against wins and losses. But I do think we know enough as a fan base to know if we were being sold a bill of goods. But it can't be that linear. It can't just be, and I don't think he would try to sell this, but it seems like that without knowing the behind the scenes details. But it can be, well, I did this at this institution, I did this at this institution, I did this at this institution. So therefore it's this is what I'm doing here. Mm-hmm. There has to be some tweaks, right?
Well, and I'm a linear
thinker. You're super pragmatic.
So it was easy for me to say, hey, Matt Rule's my favorite option because if he could do these things elsewhere, why can't he do it here?
You remind me some of those Lincoln personalities with the humble brag. You're going back to how you called your shot in July.
I didn't look, though. Did it go in? Did he say Tominaga?
Matt Rule's my guy. If he becomes available, Matt Rule needs to be our guy.
Number one, right when he got fired.
And I looked at you sideways. I was like, yeah.
You're like, let's get Lane Kiffin.
That was like the second pod that I was on the Lane train. I did put him in my top 3. Was he number 1 for me?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
I think so.
No, I think I was the Art of War guy. Wasn't I Aranda?
Ooh, he was up there too.
But I was on the Lane train. I think it was because my buddy, the mayor, Joel Schaefer.
I don't think it was a bad pick.
He kept tweeting for like weeks, "Come on home." So I felt a little swayed.
Hey, if you like filling out brackets in March, we'll have Shelby Mast on at 9. We'll talk the NFL Combine, the Huskers at the Combine, and Aaron Rodgers at 9:30, and play 2 for you to close out the show. But coming up next, it's BC.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds.
Points on the push.
Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
Points on the push. Tominaga waits. 3. Up.
He wasn't even looking at the rim when it went through. Oh, man.
If only he had some confidence.
Woo.
Yeah.
Say Tominaga.
Yeah.
Think he gets excited when that ball goes through the rim?
Did I see somebody jokingly starting a GoFundMe account to keep him in Lincoln?
I did not see the GoFundMe, but
Dude, how much?
I did hear the chants of one more year.
One more year. What? Do you know how much money
He could end up
Casey
getting.
would probably be leaving on the table? Do you love the college experience like we love our next guest? Those are things you got to kind of
I don't
weigh.
know. How much money is BC leaving on the table?
By talking to us, he could probably be making quite a pretty penny right now.
Right.
But instead, he's messing around with us yahoos.
What's up, Brian? Brian Christopherson, senior writer for Husker 24/7. Good morning.
Morning. It's either being on here with you guys or getting a breakfast burrito somewhere right now. That's like,
Is that your
burrito?
a lot on the
I know that's your go-to, right?
Well, no.
You're the rap guy.
I am a rap guy, but for breakfast, I'm French toast all the way.
So is that your go-to, BC, or is it just like your personality because it's simple and clean?
No, it was what popped into my head, and I thought it's a little bit lower class of breakfast. I feel like the breakfast burrito. So I thought that sort of fit how I should describe myself on air.
I got to get this out of the way because apparently I'm giving my mom and my little girl too hard of a time because we have highlights delivered to our house, the reading periodicals. When's the last time you've experienced highlights, BC?
Yeah, that was it felt like a dentist's office staple.
Yes.
Like second or third grade, you try to work through a puzzle before, and I was always a little nervous about the dentist, so I was probably not getting through my highlights book as fast as I should have. Because
like a secret sedative, like placed in your subconscious. Yeah, we've got a male guy and he's a P1, so he listens quite a bit. And he's like, man, I deliver highlights all the time. I was like, really? I hadn't seen them for years until they arrive at our house every month.
Well,
maybe it's just me, BC. Maybe I need to get with the times.
yeah, I was not aware it existed. It's pleasant to sometimes hear something like that you thought, oh, that's gone, or you haven't thought about since 1987 is still around. So,
well, you got to meet my mom because she's about as gentle a throwback as you're ever gonna meet, man. And she raising this yahoo. BC, so I asked this question a month ago, and I think it may be even more pertinent now. Are you at a point of Dylan Raiola fatigue?
I understand the question.
Do you think Dylan Raiola is at the point of Dylan Raiola fatigue?
That's a good way to look at it, because I don't think he needs it from what I know about him. So, I think people got to keep that in mind. That's probably where to start with that is obviously when you're that highly rated and especially the way it is around here and how hungry people are for success, and they see this shiny object like, hey, man, if we get that over here, think of what it's going to be like. It's going to be nuts. But from everything, Dominic has said about him, and I've only done, I think, 1 or 2 interviews with Dylan myself. But he's a real just like humble kid. He really is he's a yes sir kind of kid about everything, and I think it's just very diligent to like waking up every day, and they have a certain routine in their house, it sounds like, and he sticks to it. And I don't think he's getting all that caught up in it, and that might seem odd to somebody. They're like, yeah, well, why he came to an arena and walked through, did all that. That was just a fun experience where you're there and you're taking advantage of an opportunity. And I didn't think he overdid it by any means. He sort of did what was asked of him. And but myself, I'm to the point where what's the next chapter? I think we kind of know who the finalists are. We've got it pretty narrowed down. It feels like Nebraska's got a really good shot to me. And now I think much like my answers on a radio show, the helicopter is sort of circling around the landing pad right now. Now it's just got to set.
Brian, what do you make of the recent drop in the rankings on 3 for Dylan Raiola from 1 to 6?
Well, they're not me, so you can't blame me. I mean, they're not
Totally.
But I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of great players at the top that you just gotta. If you're a top 30 guy, obviously there's a thought you're going to be special. All I know is I remember when he showed up to Friday Night Lights during the Frost era, and you'd kind of heard some noise about him. You're like, yeah, we'll see. And first ball he threw downfield like 50 yards on a rope. I'm just like, okay, it's there. Like, now you got to have the extras. We all know that. When you get here or wherever he goes, you've got to have those components within the game where you're savvy and you don't turn the ball over and all that stuff. But as far as just what's in the toolkit, he's got all those parts. So whether he ends up ranked first on a website or 8th, it doesn't really matter. And, honestly, as Damon knows, with a young man going through the process right now, close to him, I mean, if you're a 3-star or whatever, it is what it is. It's a rating on a paper, and you just keep putting your head down and going to work. And there's a lot of guys who are lower rated who have shown they are big time college players, and we've seen some guys who are highly rated who still haven't panned out that way. So so you got. I think the key is whatever you're rated or whatever the like people think they know about you, you got to wake up every day saying, I'm going to prove that I'm more than that. Actually, I am that or more. And so that's the key.
Wow. I just feel like I had my life lesson. I just told Andrew yesterday, full disclosure, BC, and I'm super honest. So, I'll tell you, I said, because I can't remember how he set me up, but in vintage Andrew Rogers way, he got me to divulge more than I really wanted to. I said, gosh, this recruiting, because we were talking about Raiola dropping the 6th. And I said, you think I don't believe in these rankings at all. I said, I cringed when I saw that, and you referenced my own house, like Caleb was the number 6 rated player in his class. And I said, there's not one coach in the state of Nebraska, including the guy on Highway 370 in Bellevue, that wouldn't take him with the first pick if he had to go start a team with the 2024 class. And that includes his own guys, right? So I just, there's some sort of peace you have to have with that. And it's like Caleb said the other day, and he kind of rubbed his hands and he's like, that's why we go to work. And I figure if he thinks like that, then I have to be able to think like that, right? Because I see these guys every day. I play against them. I coach against them. I feel like I have a good idea, but it may not be what the paper says. And I think Dylan's a lot like that. He couldn't care less.
Yeah, I think so too. It's just so, the rankings are just one component. They can be useful sometimes, and there's some people who put in hard work on it. I don't want to diminish that. Obviously, I work with the company where that's an important part of it, but hardly the end all be all. And and this coaching staff at Nebraska, in particular, in Dylan's case, he's a big time prospect, but I mean, we've seen they're not too worried about what the outside perception is. Nobody knew who Bryce Turner was, like, in December. A few track people knew who he was, and Rule staff ended up he's the first commit of the Rule staff of that class. So I mean, that shows you a little something.
As the NFL Combine gets underway this week, you have 3 Huskers there. Trey Palmer, Travis Vokalek, O'Shawn Mathis. But as we continue to talk about recruits here, BC, how important is it for them to understand that development will come, but it will go at a modest pace at Nebraska, and you have to stick through kind of the highs and lows, and you may not see the field right away?
That's a good question, Andrew, because I think it's tough, not just at Nebraska, but everywhere with college coaches right now. And the recruiting piece is probably a part of it, because, you've got guys who are getting offered at 14 years old. So for 3 or 4 years, they're going to go through this process of sort of being in headlines and doing interviews and stuff like that. And then people who follow it closely, they read up so much on particular guys. By the time they even get on campus, to some people who are recruitniks or whatever you want to call us, that person feels like they're a junior almost, you know what I mean? Because they've been in their mind for 3 or 4 years actually during the recruiting process. So there's this thought, like, if it doesn't happen right away the first year, like, what's wrong here? You know, and I think you really have to fight against that if you're a player. And it's tough in this culture, especially the portal era, because there is sort of a what's over that fence, you know, and sometimes maybe there is a better something for your particular skill set over the fence. But I just hope people are in kids' ears when they're considering that stuff, if they've had a tough first year, whatever, that say, just think long and hard about this, because it might not end up better. In a lot of cases, it doesn't. So I do think there's a lot to be said for patience. I know Rule did an interview on one of his media rounds where he was talking about a player he had who really popped like in year 4 or 5. And he straight up said, I miss that like old college football, like 5th year story, you know, the guy who kind of plugs along and makes it and stuff like that. So I thought that was kind of cool to hear him say out loud, just because I do too. Like I love those stories, but we don't see them as much. I love guys who you don't hear about for a couple of years, but they've been putting in the work. And then year 3, they're in the spring. Like Luke Gifford was that type of player, if you want to name. Like he was getting hurt and nothing was going his way. And then suddenly he was a starter and he made it. And there's examples where it still happens, and guys got to remember that.
Oh man, I just listening. My train of thought is all over the place because I started out with one question. I hear the answer. Let me start with this one because you get the big segment here, so I can come back to the other one. You were talking about you know Coach Rule and kind of what he believes and who he is, kind of how that's been. You know, just kind of that irrational confidence, right? He believes in development. We were having a conversation not too long ago. He's watching old film, right? Old game tape. And it's weird because you referenced in one of your other interviews, you're like, hey, you know, like there's sometimes you'll see him watching his phone and he's looking at football film. Like that's who he is. And I think he truly loves football, BC. Like I truly do. And he was going through the notes that he took on a game that happened 20 years ago, and the list, BC, was probably 20 lines of notes. Where does loving football in relationship to this job rank for you in terms of level of importance?
I mean, it's got to be like in the top 2. I would say relationship.
Isn't it weird how we never talk about that though? Because I agree with you. You know what I mean? Like, and your answer previously sparked the thought, and you didn't even bat an eye. You're like, hey, that's top 2. We never talk about that with our coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, it is. I mean, we apply it to players in conversation sometimes because we'll say, I mean, there's like we're talking about recruits. There's so many great players across the country in high school are just tremendous athletes. But there is a difference, as you know, Damon, where if there's a guy who just doesn't love it, and I'm not even saying that's a bad thing, it's just like not as heart and soul. He's got other things that sort of grab him a little bit more. It can be really tough to kind of work your way up the ladder because you will run into dudes who have the same skills you do, and they do love it. And that's the difference. So we apply it to players, and I'm working my way back to what you said is, you know, I would think the same would apply to coaches. There's, you know, at some point you obviously love the game because you get into it and you want to teach young men and stuff. But I'm sure there's days it kind of wears you down and all that stuff. So to have a staff, and I've heard this behind the scenes about them, they're a crew that I think does love to just talk football shop a lot. Mm-hmm. And that shouldn't be underestimated. And some people will be like, well, that's Captain Obvious. Doesn't that happen everywhere? I don't know. I don't know if it does, actually. I'm not sure. So I think what you're getting at is a pretty good point.
You know, to further that for me, BC, after hearing from nearly everyone on staff now, can you stamp it in and officially say that you get the sense this coaching staff is who they've been saying they were for months now?
If I understood it right, I mean, yeah, I think they're putting in I think they're doing what they're saying, I guess is what I would come to. And that's so far. I mean, it's only been a few months, and It's a honeymoon period because we've done this with a lot of coaching staffs where we try to find everything that's positive that is about it. It is hard right now. If you were just stepped away and just no homerific takes us part of it.
It's a T-shirt.
Yeah,
homerific.
I would say it's hard to find a lot of fault with how they've gone about it. I think they're workhorses, and I think even those young guys on the staff, they got something to prove. If you want to bring it back to the recruiting analogy of the 3-star guy who thinks he should be rated a little higher or something like that, or there's something that's sort of driving him. Like there's some young guys over there been heard a lot about how young they are and like, can you coach, that sort of thing. And I would think that would drive you pretty well if you're just getting into this job. I wrote this column a month or two ago. I like the movie All the President's Men because it's a journalism movie. And there's a part where they're trying to take Woodward and Bernstein off the Watergate story. And the editors are like, you got to get a more experienced person in there. And one of the editors pounds the table for Woodward and Bernstein and says, they're hungry, Ben. Don't you remember when you were hungry? And it speaks to that, like that just youthful zeal and that like there's a time in people's life when they're really just like, I'm going to go get it and I'm going to show it. And I think he's got some people on his staff that are like that. That's my early read. And I think he's found those people in the past, which to your question is why I have some confidence, because I think you look at like Fran Brown, who's at, like he hired him in his late 20s and like now he's a DB's coach at Georgia, and I think he's going to ascend even higher as time goes on. So, I mean, he's got the examples of people of work.
And don't think that the Georgia connection doesn't matter when it comes to people like Fran Brown, where if we're not taking care of our kids, I want to entrust them to you. Let me ask one more thing philosophically, BC, because I asked Andrew, I said, do you have to check yourself sometimes and say, hey, you know what? It can't be this easy because it's the off season. We're kind of drinking the Kool-Aid and he's hitting home run after home run and he's been exactly who he said he's going to be. And I'm like, do you ever have to just check yourself and say, gosh, you know what? There's no way it's that linear. But my buddy responded after hearing that question and he said, you can say it can't be that easy, but you yourself, DB, have said on multiple occasions it shouldn't be this hard. Is there truth to that? It shouldn't be as hard as we've made it the last 15, 20 years, and it can be that easy?
Yeah, well, I think you're onto something there. I mean, I just look around the country and I see programs that don't have what Nebraska has, and they can be solid at least 7 or 8 win football teams, and they can build up a squad that on a given Saturday is going to go in there and it's going to be a fight. And I mean, one of them's across the border. Let's be honest. Like Iowa's that type of program and has been. And so, I think it has been made to look a little more difficult than it needs to be around here sometimes. There is a difference here that you have to deal with that's not everywhere, and that is it truly is the rock show in town. Like because think about all the, even talk radio and everything that consumes like Husker football, like right now, like on March 1st, we're talking about it and we're diving in deep to it as we can at this point. And it's not that everywhere where there's a distraction where you got the pro team over here and all this stuff, and it kind of pulls people away. And I think you maybe get a little more breathing room. So I do think there have been coaching staffs and people who have really had to adapt to, they think they know what it's going to be like to be inside this fishbowl, but it's actually even a little bit more intense than you expected it would be. Like if you're on the outside and you just sort of looked at Nebraska football from a distance, I mean, I would say it's as passionate per capita or whatever you want to say as any place about a sport. It just is. I've always believed that. I'll defend that. And so that's something where you got to have the sort of mindset, I think, as a coach, where you say, I've done this before. I've had success. I know my methods. I'm going to trust my methods. But I also know there's going to be scrutiny at times, and there's going to be a lot of attention on everything I do. And I've got to have sort of that thick hide that doesn't worry too much about it.
BC,
and I think that's a big deal. Yeah.
No, I apologize for the interruption there. BC, senior writer for Husker 24/7, at Husker247BC on Twitter. I want to take advantage of your basketball side of your brain now before we let you go. Outside of just making and missing shots, what changed the most for the Huskers in the second half last night?
I mean, if you want to put something on Nebraska, it was probably they didn't contest as well, and that's what Hoiberg said in the post game in the second half. They were scrambling a lot in the first half on defense, but they were still active enough, I think, that they were forcing some more difficult shots. Now, Izzo also said after the game, we were getting good looks in the first half. We just weren't hitting. And if you kind of go back through it in your mind, he's right. There were some shots that they had open, they just didn't knock down. I mean, sometimes like 3-on-1 possession. So even when Nebraska was up, I sort of knew, or I thought it was going to be a game down to the last minute, even when it was like a 15, 17 point game. Because I was thinking like Michigan State's going to start hitting a few of these shots. Nebraska's going to have to hold off. The difference this time was they just didn't quite have that one extra push they've had in other weeks. When Michigan State made that 11-0 run, and I think it made it 60-56, Tominaga got a layup, 60-58 with 6 minutes. And that was the moment where you're like, okay, if they could get a stop or two and they could get that back to even or ahead, then they got something. And they just couldn't get it. It was that point where Michigan State had gotten way too comfortable. They were settled in. And there you have it. You got to give a lot of credit to Michigan State. In the second half, that looked like an Izzo March team that's going to be a problem for people, I thought.
Yeah, they look like they have a ton of upside. We were talking with one of their beat reporters yesterday, and Michigan State hasn't really been healthy. Then they had the layoff. Then they're short a game. They're kind of edgy, rounding in the form, especially as streaky as Iowa is right now. And they hammered a good Indiana team, which makes that game in Iowa City look kind of daunting right now. But Michigan State looks like a team that has another – that's what I'm always looking for, another gear left in them.
Yeah, I agree. I could be proven wrong on this, but we know their history in that tournament. They've had teams like this before where they have 11 or 12 losses or whatever. They're 6-7 seed and they end up like in the Elite Eight, or something like that. And I wouldn't be shocked if they're that kind of team actually. And so Nebraska, I'm sure, could have done a few things a little bit better, but for what Nebraska has, I don't know. Sometimes you just say they ran into a squad that's a little better, and just couldn't miss. And I think there's a piece of that that's true last night. I didn't feel like Nebraska didn't show up or anything. They were ready to play. Man, that was a fun arena for about 25 minutes. When Tominaga hit the three, or what is Tom Izzo? Tom Izzo had a different, did you hear his post game? It was like Tominaqua.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
When K-State hit the three, looked the other way and it was up 10, you're like, geez, Husker basketball's fun right now. It was just too bad that the good times couldn't keep coming.
BC, we appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much. We'll talk again next week.
Thanks, guys.
That is Brian Christopherson, senior writer for Husker 24/7. You can toss him a follow on Twitter at Husker247BC. Coming up next, we're talking to Andy Kendeigh, sports director at KETV. He's got a busy week ahead, as that is all centered around state basketball over in Lincoln. I remember these days vividly. You look forward to it, but at the same time, you're like, how am I going to accomplish all of this in such a short amount of time? We'll talk to him about that. We'll get his thoughts on the Huskers, Creighton, everything in town. Stay with us. Andy Kendeigh from KETV up next on Coffee and Cream.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
We are back. Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency, alongside David Benning, Andrew Rogers here. And now it's time to welcome in our next guest. He is the sports director over at KETV. His name is Andy Kendeigh, and you know him well because he invites himself into all of your households unannounced every night. Andy, good morning.
Sometimes uninvited. So, I apologize for that. Good morning, boys. How's it going?
It's old school Atlantis.
Congrats on one side.
Thank you. As you've seen AK up close, when they're good, they're fantastic. When they're bad, they can be awful. So you just have to.
That was I come for it. I was watching people tabs on YouTube. That's Westside Flyers pretty good little YouTube channel.
Yeah, Max is the real
And
deal.
I was feeling for you, cringing, seeing that that lead get smaller and smaller, and then. But you know what? All's well that ends well, right? Never a doubt. And the Warriors are going to the state tournament.
So yeah, that's never a doubt. I don't know. DB doubted a lot.
that's the same team that led Burke by 2 points in the halfway through the third quarter. So it's like, but took Bellevue West to overtime. So you just box of chocolates, AK. I just try to buckle up, buddy.
They are the Forrest Gump of Class A.
But you know, all biased aside, they're the one school, in my opinion, that if Bellevue West would ever stub their toe, it's Westside's the team that's built to do it because they can make Bellevue West play small, and they have good guards that can help contain. I say, not slow down the firepower of Bellevue West, because it's a tall task once that wild card shifted and they moved over to the other half of the bracket.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think it's really the Bellevue West Invitational, in my opinion. But I do think if there is a team that has a chance to give Bell West a run for its money, I think it's Westside. Lincoln schools. I watched prep on Tuesday or Monday night.
Against Southeast?
Monday. Yeah, and I watched Bellevue West win, and then I zipped over to prep. And Lincoln Southeast is solid. I just don't know if they have the offensive firepower to stay with Bell West. And I just think that if Bellevue West does what they do, even on a poor shooting night, their defense is portable to a point where they can play good enough defense, just hanging every game. So when they're not shooting it well, they're still pretty good. But a lot of things would have to align right for Bellevue West or align wrong for Bellevue West not to win the title, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Crazy stuff has happened down in Lincoln.
Yeah. See, I think Lincoln East is the best. And I'm dropping it in air quotes because I mean it, but I mean it literally. The best coached team in Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they know who they are. They play connected. Campbell's fantastic. But Southeast may have the best individual pieces. They're just kind of a crapshoot in terms of how they play. If that backcourt, they have some pieces, Voss, that they can give you a headache. I just don't know, which team is showing up.
I agree, and I thought Tuesday they were Monday they were a much different team in the second half than the first. But so was Prep. Prep really struggled offensively. They couldn't buy themselves a hoop. But I agree with you, DB. They athletically, Southeast is going to give teams some problems.
Yep,
they've got some very athletic bigs. And that Moore kid who's a guard.
They got good depth too.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see them gain a little confidence as that game moved on, and by the end they were flexing. But and I'm interested to see how Gretna bounces back too. It's always interesting to see the team that stubs their toe and gets in on a wild card, like they got a second lease on life.
Yeah, terrible matchup for Westside. So that was the beauty of going on the other half of the bracket, because for whatever the reason, they deal Westside fits.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, Gretna, you know what you're going to get with Gretna. They're so well coached, and they're going to really stick it to you defensively.
Yeah, they guard. They guard
yeah.
their ass off.
And that's the thing. That's the beauty of the state tournament. Yeah, we say all this stuff. We say it's Bellevue West tournament to win, but we've been there. We've seen it time and time again. A team has an off day, and who knows? And the Cinderella emerges, so to speak. But it's funny even using that phrase, because a team has to be pretty darn good to get to Lincoln. But you never know what's going to happen. That's why the beauty of the state tournament is that on Saturday, 6 champions will be crowned, both on consecutive Saturdays, girls this week and boys this week. And you think but do you really know until you know, right?
Yeah. But does Bryce get it done as the 1 seed this time around for Millard South? The top 4 or 5 seeds in that deal, that bad boy is wide open in Class A girls.
Couldn't agree with you more, DB. Millard South, for that great core group of girls, I will be interested to see how they handle this first round game. All the pressure's on them.
Yeah.
And I know that Ellie did a piece with them this last week, and yes, they said that their legacy, it doesn't matter if they win a state championship or not in terms of how great they were. They've won so many games, and they really have. And Babbitt and Lennon and Olsen, what a great trio they've been. But to be considered one of the great teams in Nebraska history, you're going to have to win a title. And I think everybody knows that, right? So it'll be interesting to see how Millard South navigates these next few days. Southwest is no gimme. They've kind of rejuvenated, and
especially with Kendeigh.
It's Kendeigh back, and we saw what happened last year with her in the lineup. But I think Lincoln High is going to give people fits on the other side of the bracket. I know Millard North, a lot of people pen them in as a final, but man, Lincoln High plays so hard.
Yes, they do,
and they get after you. So I agree. I think that one is pretty wide open.
Hey, transition here for me, AK, as tonight is senior night over at Creighton. Everybody does senior night differently. I feel even in high school, it's like, where do the girls go after their game and the boys before, or do they all go before, or how that deal is going down? Creighton's going after their game and not before, like Nebraska went before last night. What would you say is like the best track to take whenever you go through a senior night ceremony? Because it seems like, would you want to bank on a win to go at the end? It to me, it's like, man, everything seems easier if you just do it at the beginning.
Well, that's a great question. And Creighton's been doing it like this for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen it work in their favor, and I've seen it work kind of backfire on them. But I don't know if there's any right way of doing it, right? You saw what Nebraska did last night. That Pinnacle Bank Arena was on fire. I mean, the place was electric. They come out smoking. They were killing Michigan State,
Mm-hmm.
and they couldn't sustain that emotion for 40 minutes. And you saw what happened in the second half. So is that a better way of approaching? You got to do it somehow, some way. But, man, if it was my preference, if I'm in charge, I'd do it early and get it out of the way. But I understand both approaches. And it's kind of a unique, interesting senior night, quote unquote. You got to use those air quotes too, because, Baylor Shireman is a guy being honored, but he hasn't technically made his decision. So it's kind of a weird deal where Farabello and Sharif both have said, yeah, we plan on coming back next year. So it is kind of a weird deal about senior night. It's not like senior nights of old. And I think this is kind of the new normal we're looking at. You're going to see a lot of these things where, like, this guy's going to walk. I mean, you look at Derek Walker. Last night was round 3 of senior nights for Derek Walker. So I think this is just going to be kind of the new normal, what we're going to be looking at every spring.
Sharif was with his brother Darnell last night, and obviously Alvin, they were watching CJ. And I think it's interesting because I think for him, and I'm not sure about Farabello, but it's all about limiting emotions and just dialing in on the task at hand, right? It's good for the fans, but for the players, sometimes I think they just simply want to manage the emotions to be able to focus on playing.
And that's where doing it afterwards might be beneficial, right? You don't even think about it. You stay in your routine, and then afterwards you can just let all that emotion come out. And I get that. I do, because let's be honest, Creighton needs a win tonight as much as you kind of roll your eyes. I mean, there's no gimmies in the Big East, and they're not going to just roll. Georgetown's not going to roll over, and Creighton needs to find something that they seem to have lost the last couple games, and heading into New York, and then just as more important, going into the NCAA tournament.
Let the Ed Cooley sweepstakes begin for Georgetown.
Yep.
That's Stevie's guy. His prediction. He's been on it for a while. He's like, you better let people know, Andrew. You better let people know that this was my guy that I picked over at Georgetown. AK, thanks so much, man.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, be safe, Andy. Got a lot of work to do today.
KETV, no doubt.
They're split. They got state basketball and Creighton tonight.
No doubt. Coming up next, we'll do a roster review. I also want to get into some thoughts on the NCAA. That's next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Welcome back to the show. On deck, Shelby Mast, bracketologist for USA Today and bracketwage.com. Huskers at the Combine at 9:30 and 2 for you at 9:45. So a loaded 9 o'clock hour for those of you that are sticking around for the rest of the show. We appreciate you, and we appreciate having you here as we do every single day from 7 to 10. What were you doing last night? Were you sitting on the couch watching games? Were you streaming West Side's basketball game like I was? Were you watching Nebraska basketball when that turned over at 8? What about the back end of the KU Texas Tech game? Well, at night, there's only one thing you pair all of those things with, and that's an Acres Ale. Brewed with Nebraska corn. It is crisp, it's clean, it's light, it's refreshing. How about all those words? They make you want to dance. They make you want to run to the store and get you a case of Acres Ale because it's locally brewed. That means here, local. It's the perfect beer to pair with anything sports. At least that's what I do. So if you're like me, maybe you play video games and you like to have a drink or a shower beer. I know people have done that before. I can attest. I've had a shower beer before. Have you, DB?
No.
Well, you are not living it.
Well, that's not
Take
to
an
say
Acres
that.
Ale
Not
and you
to
go
say that I
home.
haven't had a drink en route to the shower. It just wasn't a beer.
Take a beer to the shower.
How about a beer?
Maybe after you come home tonight, Miller North finding a way to win. Some positive vibes coming back to Omaha. Have a shower beer, an Acres Ale, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, as long as it's a dub, anything's possible.
And you're not much of a beer drinker, so if you are drinking a beer, then you know it's a good night.
How about a beer? I think beer is one of those things that you would consume when you want to wash down alcohol.
Excuse me?
Yeah, I think I want to come down a little bit. Can you throw me a beer?
Oh, hey, man, I've been drinking the clear stuff all night, and it's not water. But if I could have a beer just to close out my night, that'd be great.
Quench my thirst.
Sounds great.
Listen, man, high functioning. High functioning.
Would you drink a beer with Brett?
With
Musburger?
bread?
How about a beer?
Oh, Brent. I
Oh,
think you
yeah,
said
Brent.
bread.
No, I said Brent.
Me too. Yeah, as long as he wasn't driving, or me.
Hopefully neither are driving.
Well, I'd shoot the breeze. I'd ask him how he likes your Raiders, how he likes the new gig, what he was thinking about after the Nebraska broadcast, and having a beer and getting pulled over in Lincoln. One-way streets, man, they'll get you.
Mm-hmm.
How about a beer?
Yeah, you know, those.
You are
one-way
looking
streets
live.
everywhere.
Do you enjoy Brent on your broadcast, Shane?
I prefer the other, and I know the host that we had before, Severe, would hate this take, but I prefer the
host that we had before.
I
Carry
prefer
the two.
I prefer, yeah, Michael Severe would hate this take. I prefer the play-by-play announcer that we had before if you take the two together.
Yeah.
And that's the current guy for the 49ers.
Well, okay.
But, I mean, that's the, Brent is more, he'll paint the picture and he'll give you, like analytics, and he'll give you more of the, if you're the football, you want the, what happened, where I'm more of the, like, if I'm listening to the game, I want the entertainment, and the other guy was more entertaining. So that's just me.
I think those two go hand in hand. I want the football and the entertainment.
Hey,
sometimes they don't.
Shane is
Sometimes-
all business.
Sometimes it's all business.
You
with
don't
these
you don't
play-by-play
you don't
guys.
need no stinking fluff.
Well, I mean, sometimes I need some fluff.
What do you got in that head, DB? What are you about to say?
Not a darn thing. They're paid
You seem very hurt right now.
They're paid positions for that, Shane. You wouldn't have to work very hard.
But to answer your question, I mean, he's fine. I mean, he's a legend. So
How about a beer?
How about a beer? How about we talk about the offensive line? Over at Nebraska?
Offensive line is good. I like O-line.
We heard Donovan Raiola speak last week, and I even said, I can't remember who we were talking to, if it was Mike Schaefer or Brandon Vogel, but I said people are still asking me at least, why is Raiola back? And I thought that answer was squashed when Matt Rule came out and said, well, I didn't think they were that bad. But apparently not. So, I guess the simplest answer I gave is if somebody on your team advocated for you at work, DB, to keep your job despite having a bad quarter, would that stick out to your employer too? Like the players in this case advocated to Coach Rule that Donovan Raiola is more than what we saw last year. You don't just take a piece of the pie and say it's cold in the middle. You check the whole pie, cook it a little longer to get it just right. Maybe that's what is happening now. You put the pie back into the oven because you're getting everything just right.
I wish I knew like the real timeline between what I think they felt like the players wanted and Coach Satterfield and Coach Raiola hitting it off. Was it kind of in conjunction? Because Coach Satterfield, like Coach Raiola, right away. And remember, it's Coach Satterfield that said, "Hey, listen, man, I came to Lincoln with every intention of needing a new offensive line coach." After sitting down with Coach Raiola, I'm like, we don't need a new offensive line coach. How did one of my favorite Coach Raiola-esque answers in the presser the other day was, "Hey, what was it about you and Coach Satterfield?" He's like, "Look, man, we believe the same things."
That's it.
Next question.
That's it. Period.
It's just like, it's just vintage. It's just vintage Doc. I call him Doc sometimes just because of DR. But you know, for the players, and
It's
you
exciting.
don't have any seniors, right? Especially now that Anthony Lynn's gone. So I mean, your junior class, you got Benhart and Corcoran and Piper, Norelli, and now you've got Scott in the fold, and everybody else is a soft on down with Lutovsky and Prohaska. We'll see what happens with Jacob Hood and Justin Jenkins, who are in the fold, and then that whole new young group with Gatula, Knutson, Sledge, Goldman, and Masterjack, who's still on the offensive side of the line right now. So you have
depth and young depth.
And you kind of have now got a nice little blend of some guys with some playing. I mean, Benhart, Corcoran, Piper, Norelli, and Ben Scott have played a ton of football. Teddy Prohaska is very, very well maybe kind of your future. That was the one guy that I felt like Coach Raiola kind of gushed about a little bit for him. You know, he kind of is pretty measured with accolades. Seemed like he was pretty happy about the progress of Teddy, and Lutovsky's had a lot of playing experience. So
and they've liked his winter workouts.
So you know, right away you've got 7 guys, 7 good names. You know, and I can hear it now. Oh man, you know, are we really trusting, you know, guys like Benhart, and he's been this and he's been that, and so man, another year with the same voice, with a scheme that may accentuate or play better to your strengths, all bets are off, right? I mean, you could still there's still room for growth and there's still room for improvement, but I think having a minimum of 7 guys that you can trot out there and play, that's a good place to start, because look at the games that they've got under their belt. Got some experience.
And Benhart took a lot of criticism last year, and his video started to surface late in the year on, you know, is his head in the right space,
this, that, and the other, getting off the ball. Yeah.
But, you know, at the end of the day, that common voice is a real thing, because, you know, at this point, you're dealing with somebody that can improve now in the offseason with the same person, with the new coaching staff. And how often have we seen somebody have a bad year, go back into the lab, regroup, recoordinate themselves, maybe find themselves, go into a dark place, perhaps, come out 3 days later? How often have you seen, you know, kind of come to yourself moments, come to Jesus moments, and say, you know, it's this year or no year? And you know, I'm not saying that it's Bryce, you get it done this year or you don't. You're getting replaced or you get moved, whatever it is. I'm not saying that that's what's been told, but you'd have to think that, you know, Bryce acknowledges that he didn't have the best season last year, and he's ready to work with these guys once again and prove that he belongs on that line.
So, and just in coaching, having done this so long, my glass stays half full. Like I typically try to just, I mean, you got to coach them up, because I've seen really good 8th graders not be very good freshmen. I've seen just okay 8th graders be really good freshmen. I've seen good juniors not be very good seniors. I've seen okay juniors be very good seniors. And so I think as a coach, and I'm like this in education, and I said this before, right? I get the whole, usually the best indicator of future performance is past behaviors. But if it were truly that case, we would just stay where we are. We would just be lifelong stagnant. And so I always believe, just because things have been doesn't mean they always will be. So I'm looking forward to it, especially when Coach Rule gives me these little clues in his press conferences and things where, you know, you talk about marrying the offense and sequential play calling to your team's skill set and what you want them to do, what you think they're good at. He's got a good 8 weeks in terms of strength and conditioning. So he's watched body movements. Spring ball is still a couple of weeks away where you can have guys still kind of grow and mature in terms of their movements. There's a reason I think he looks at all the different type of run games that he's been looking at since he's been here, because he's going to see what styles fit with how his guys move. So therefore, I'm always going to think guys can be better.
We will talk wide receiving room tomorrow, which is loaded. But as we
with bodies,
correct.
I don't know about production.
But when we get into the 9:30 segment and talk combine, wait to hear what I have to say about what Coach Rule is able to do and has been able to do in regards to development and sticking through that development from freshman year on to senior year. That's coming your way. But first, we're talking to Shelby Mast next on Coffee and Cream.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
15, and the ball game comes to a close. Michigan State over the final 13 minutes and 30 seconds outscores the Huskers 35-12 to take the win 80-67. Fighting for it, somehow came away with it and now has 1,000 career points. Maybe more bucket bigger than that one for KU. Timeout. Missed it. Bradley lost the rebound. Dagenhart to Smith. And Boise State is going to come back and beat number 18, San Diego State.
DB, who was tapping their ring finger yesterday?
I think it was Jalen Wilson.
It was Jalen Wilson. And how many times do you think he tapped his ring finger after that game?
Yeah.
When KU clinched the share of the Big 12
I just
title?
was in awe of the red uniforms. And
I thought it was Texas Tech at first when I flipped over to the game.
I kind of like those. They look kind of sweet. Kind of like when Creighton goes to the powder blue. I like kind of that accent color that gets prominent. That they look
No
sweet.
doubt.
I'm telling you, man, Self is doing some self things.
Well, I'll tell you what, this is one of my favorite times of year. When March rolls around, you get the best basketball. It's a one-and-done tournament, my favorite way to operate, and I love going over just the different scenarios, the different hypotheticals, where teams could land, and we get to do that today with Shelby Mast. He joins the show. Shelby, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Shelby, we're still gonna be buddies, man. I've been talking to you for some years, and this isn't like when Nebraska's fan base is on you a couple years ago about a 48 net ranking. It's, man, you got my Tar Heels as the first 4 out, man.
He's not the only one.
I'm in my feels. Northwestern gets rid of Nance and they get better. We get Pete Nance and he becomes this integral part, man. Am I gonna be okay, Shelby?
I don't know. They're in the same spot where was about a game ago or 2 games ago, everybody had them out, including me, and they got a couple of wins, in tournament, and that was 8 seed, and you see what happened then.
Well, they're turning some heads right now, are they not? I mean, the way that they are finally starting to pick up some rhythm this late in the season, could you see them getting out of the first 4 out and getting to the first 4 in?
I could. The game against Duke is a big game. Got to win that. If they don't win that, they have to win the ACC tournament and put them about on the fun.
Shelby, you've done this a long. We still got you there, Shelby. You there?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Hey, you've done this a long time. What's more difficult right now for you, the 2 line or the 3 line when it comes to seeds? They seem pretty interchangeable.
Yeah, they really are. My biggest thing for the past week been Purdue and UCLA. I'm just looking at their resume. Baylor has so many more quad wins. UCLA has a better record. It's come down to this weekend to the last 1 season.
As you look at the conferences here too, Shelby, the Big 12 may not have every team or the most amount of teams in regards to the bracket, but they sure as heck have the 1s and 2s, and if not the majority of the 2s, if you're depending on what bracket you're looking at. You have Baylor in the 1s with KU, and then you have K-State that dropped out into the 3s, but for the most part, they're right around that vicinity. Do you think the Big 12 is running it right now?
It kind of seems that way. I mean, you're saying they won't have the most, but they'll have the highest in. And so it's 10 teams in that conference that get through double during the season, so we know who the best is. And it's just so tough conference.
And talking with Shelby Mast, he's got bracketwag.com, man, and it is current and up to date. I'm going right to the 5 line where I see the Creighton Blue Jays sitting there at 18-11, but I'm looking at the 5s as comps. Creighton, Miami, who very well may be the best team in the ACC, at least with some upside, and no disrespect to Duke because I am fearful of this healthy Duke bunch. But then you go with St. Mary's and Iowa State right there. When you look at the 5 line, it seems like some discrepancy with records, but the metrics seem to play out.
Yeah, the become metric. I love it or hate it. Lean towards hate. Everything is based on that. Doesn't seem like eye test is used anymore. Thrown around, but not much. Everything metrics based. I like.
Everybody watches day one, Shelby, and they wait for the upset. They want to know who gets the upset. And based on who you have in the lower seed set right here, Oral Roberts is a team that a lot of people are not sleeping on coming out of the Summit. Colgate's another team that has been on my radar.
That's your radar.
And that's a team that plays defense but can also score the basketball. Charleston's been in the top 25 this year already. Out of all of the lower seeds, who do you think is going to be the one, if you had to choose, to deliver an upset on Thursday?
Well, I think probably. I don't know if I can that big of an upset. Ranked, but I eliminate that team. Drake is solid. Whoever comes, Drake or Brown, going to get some team. Utah Valley is not. Southern Miss been up there.
Hey, Shelby, we're getting a little breakup. We're going to hang up and call you right back and see if we can't get a better connection. We'll call you right back.
Okay.
Thanks, Shelby.
Hey, thanks, Shelby.
I'm going to get right into it. Does it surprise you that Michigan is in as much trouble as they are?
They are out right now.
Yeah, and he's got them, I think, as the last 4 in.
I saw ESPN last night having them out.
And so there's a lot of discrepancy for Michigan, where if you looked at this season that Juwan Howard was starting with, you have to be like, hey, I know you guys haven't been all the way healthy and you know, you need a healthy jet, but man,
I'll tell you
Michigan
what.
just has not been able to get it going.
I'll tell you what, DB, North Carolina flip-flopping with Michigan right now wouldn't shock me if we went through an update today, we, restarted everything, filled in the blanks. Wouldn't shock me if UNC takes that spot for last 4 in and Michigan falls to first 4 out.
We got to figure out how to make sure that the wheels don't fall off. You're heading into ACC play. We got Shelby back, Shane. Shelby, you there? How do we sound? Is that okay?
I'm better.
Hey, there we go.
Yeah, that sounds a lot better for us.
We were just talking off air, Shelby. I'm surprised that Michigan is in as much trouble as they are. I looked at a couple of mock brackets last night. They weren't in it. You have them kind of fighting. They're the last 4 in with Nevada, SC, and Arizona State. When you look at this Michigan team, how much work do they still have left to do?
I think they still need to win a game in the regular season, maybe 1 or 2 in the tournament. They're not safe by any stretch, but I have them in now just barely.
Shelby, who do you think comes out of the Sun Belt? Because, Marshall's been another team that's been on my radar for a long time. And, now I'm starting to think maybe it's Ragin' Cajun country. I'm curious to know who you like coming out of the Sun Belt.
Marshall's been on my radar pretty much all season too, but Southern Miss has been playing well all year. A few slip-ups here and there, but they've won 25 games. You can't overlook that.
Shelby, I know you're numbers guy. You crunch them for a living, but my eyeballs tell me Villanova is really good right now. They're not, they're trying to play for an at-large, not even in the field. They've got to make a significant run, even though they're just now starting to get healthy. Is that kind of how you see it?
Yeah, that's exactly how I see it. Been struggling all year. They piled up some losses, but they're getting hot at the right time. And if I put on my website last night that Villanova is now in play. I can't overlook them anymore. I better not sleep on them. They're coming on teams that they need to beat. I don't know if they get that large, but we win the Big East tournament.
Shelby, DB brought it up earlier about Miami possibly being the best team in the ACC, but if you look at the conference standings, it's Pittsburgh right now, and they've played I don't want to call it a lighter schedule, but I think they've taken advantage of teams when they've been at their worst, at least in the ACC this year. You have them slotted in at 9, which is that as a general public, is that doing Pittsburgh an injustice by having them at 9 and having Miami so high at 5?
I don't know. I think Miami has had a better overall year and beat better teams. Miami took that bad loss of the weekend. There was a stinker. And Pittsburgh's got a bad loss, I think 2 maybe. But they just haven't played as tough schedule. And Miami has 2 fewer losses and 2 more wins. That's the main difference for me.
Shelby, it's interesting because, you have to play the numbers game, but I think one of the things that has drawn the ire of the fan base, and it's always new metrics, right? You're trying to evolve, and, we figured out that we think the RPI is antiquated, and we've got these new formulas, but the one that it seems to be driving people crazy because they don't understand the fluctuation, the whole quad thing seems to come back into discussion. When you're looking at quad 1, quad 2, quad 3, quad 4s, do you like kind of the evolution of using the quad system as it stands currently as a good baseline metric?
It's not the worst, but I'm not sold on it. If the committee's going to look at a team, I'm going to just pick one, let's say Duke. Beat Duke when they're ranked 29, it's a quad 1 win. But later on, they lose another game and they fall to 33. Well, now it's a quad 2 win. You beat Duke when they were good. That should be all that matters. And I understand why they're doing this. It's a sorting tool. I'm not sold on that because they can't release the formula. Part of it is AI learning, and I can't get behind a computer learning how good a team is.
Shelby, I'm looking at kind of the Big Ten. Andrew and I we've been talking about this the last couple of days. It seems like Michigan State has the most room for growth, right? They had the most things to overcome early in terms of injuries. But when we talk to national guys, they love Illinois in terms of kind of being that team. I personally like Indiana, and that's withstanding what I saw Iowa do to them last night. When you look at the Big Ten, what do you like? Is Purdue that team? Because they seem vulnerable.
I don't think Purdue is. If I had to pick the winner of the national champ right now, for me, it's Indiana, despite what happened last night. Everybody has a bad game, and it was a bad game for them. But they have been one of the better teams. They've got a star player who can lead that team, put them on his back. That's my favorite to win it all right now.
Yeah, Iowa didn't miss either.
What's the difference between what Trace Jackson Davis does for Indiana and Zach Edey for Purdue? Is it simply about the supporting cast?
I think it is. And Zach Edey, he's not completely one-dimensional, but most of his shots are within the feet of the basket. Trace Jackson Davis will step back and take a 3 every now and again just to keep a team honest. Zach Edey's a player I'd love to have on my team, but he's a little more dimensional.
We're talking to Shelby Mast, bracketologist for USA Today and bracketwag.com, at bracketwag on Twitter. Shelby, Marquette has been a team that everybody undervalued going into this season. They were pre-ranked 9th to come out of the Big East, and here they are now sitting in your rankings at a 3. They are top 10 in the country. But my question to you is, do you think they've peaked too early based on the early expectations that were set on them? Or do you think they have momentum going into March that maybe another team like Kentucky has right now?
I kind of think they've got momentum. I mean, you're right. Everybody slept on them, included. They weren't near the bracket. They didn't register, and now this year they've done a phenomenal job. A friend of mine that says he never trusts Marquette. He's been awful quiet this year. So,
Shelby, this one's interesting because they have 0 bad losses. They're 10-7 versus quad 1 teams. They've gotten through the Chris Beard situation in Austin. They've got a big one coming up. Metrics like Texas, the net rankings like Texas. You got them firmly entrenched as the third of the 2 seeds, at least as I'm kind of reading the bracket. Do you like Texas?
I do. They're a good team. And when Chris Beard was ousted, I think everybody kind of thought they'd take a step back and take a while to regroup, and they didn't. They've got some very impressive wins. They have kept going. I just don't know if this team stops before the Final Four. I'll be surprised if they do, but they're playing very well.
I've seen a lot of people, Shelby, have Houston as their winner, Alabama as their winner, and Baylor as their winner, all 1 seeds. Is this another year of a 1 seed like we saw last year with KU? Or because of how wide open the field has been all season in college basketball, do you think that it's going to be someone that isn't a 1 seed?
I think it's going to be someone that's not a 1 seed. You don't have that 1 or 2 teams that are just blowing everybody away every game. Everybody's kind of even. There is differential between the seed lines, but for the most part, they're pretty even. And I think it's going to make a great tournament.
Shelby, I'll get you out of this. Just another Big East question. We were talking to our Creighton beat writer the other day, and we were kind of going through teams in the Big East that have maybe gear is too strong of a word, but a little something left that we haven't seen before. And he referenced UConn and said, hey, listen, I think we forgot how good UConn was early in the season. Now the backcourt play is kind of steady. They've got some horses that they can go to. How do you like UConn in terms of, are they in that Michigan State category where they can take it up another notch, or you think the body of work is what it is?
I think they've done a great job. They started off the year undefeated for 14 games, I think. And they had a stretch where they lost 6 in a row, I think. But they have turned it around, righted the ship, whatever you use. They're a tough team, and I think that is right that a lot of people have forgot about them. But don't sleep on them in March.
Shelby Mast, we appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much, and hopefully we talk again soon.
Glad to do it, guys.
Thanks, Shelby.
See, that's why I love talking brackets. You get all the way up and down the charts, DB, of nearly every college basketball conference, every college basketball team. And because of the fluctuation that we've seen this year, I still have no real grasp on what I'm going to do when I have to fill out my bracket.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? I mean, if you go to bracket wag.com, you can kind of see it. And it was last updated this week, I think the 28th, so yesterday. Last night, there's a couple of little surprises. West Virginia, who I just was talking about them last week against who'd they get blown out by? Was it Okie State? They were kind of in this one early.
Oklahoma State.
I don't.
They're just a team that when things are going wrong, they are going wrong. They can't they can't buy a bucket. They can't defend. But when things are going right, I'm like, man, this team could upset anyone.
So of the power conferences that are supposed to be good, you realize that the Big 12 is the one I feel like I have the least handle on. Because it's hard for me to look at TCU. I mean, I like K-State because, they got a bona fide bucket getter, and I think they've won 3 in a row. I don't love Iowa State. They're trending in the wrong direction. And I certainly don't know how many in a row has Okie State lost? 4 or 5? I don't know.
Not good, even though they had that comeback.
Outside of Kansas, Baylor and Texas. I don't know how good I think the Big 12 is. Now I do tell you the team that would scare me that doesn't get a lot of national run in the Big 12 is Kansas State. Because they do have a bona fide bucket getter. And we can debate whether he should have been in Lincoln or not. We won't get into that. But that team does scare me a little bit. I just don't feel like I have a good handle on the middle of that pack.
That's the same with me with UCLA. I
like, you know me.
And I like UCLA, and I've liked them from the very beginning.
I like UCLA.
But going back to just the point you just made, how good is the Pac-12?
And I get it, especially with teams like SC on the bubble and Arizona State, right? It's like Arizona State just went into Tucson and won. And, you know, Arizona has some of those head-scratching losses, but they're a juggernaut offensively.
No doubt.
You know what? I like UCLA because I think they're athletic enough on the wing. They're good in the backcourt. And Jaime Jaquez has been there and done that. Right? I talked about Tiger Campbell. He's found a way to take some minutes off his legs. I think he'll be good for the stretch run. And I think this is a team, because of the last couple of years, and this happens sometimes, and basketball affords you this luxury. They kind of just go through the motions because they've been there and done that for a couple of years in a row. And I think they're waiting to step on the gas. Now, we'll see if that bites them in the bunda. But they just strike me as this team that's just getting by, but is capable because they have all the pieces.
Jaime Jaquez strikes me as a Drew Timme lookalike on the floor. Somebody that plays the guard position, but plays bigger as he gets into the lane. He may not be the fastest as he gets to the rack, but he is a true scorer, and he's somebody that offense runs through.
If you gave me two teams to pick, and I'm kicking myself for doing it because they're everything that I don't like. Is I'm not sure on their toughness, but I like UCLA and I like Gonzaga. Drives me crazy to pick two West Coast teams,
kind of off-ball teams.
But I like, if I gave you two picks, okay, so one for margin of error, like what two teams are you taking?
I would take Alabama.
God, so is everybody. I don't trust them.
But I also like Baylor a lot too. But I'm not going to take both 1 seeds because I think that
Baylor's another team I don't really trust.
See, the way that just they play and
they shoot so many threes.
Yeah, but they make up for a lot of their mistakes on defense. I like Bama. I mean, who doesn't like how well Brandon Miller's been playing despite everything that's been going on the back end away from basketball? Another team I really like, and I've kind of rode this for a while, but it's Texas A&M. A&M's a team that, has kind of just been doing enough to get by right now, but I think they have more to give.
Do you remember a month and a half ago, the team in the Big Ten that I said I was captivated by the most, but I'm not sure?
Illinois.
No. It was Iowa. And they went through this lull. I'm like, I have no idea who they are because they won't defend. And now they're back to this miracle comeback against Michigan State, down 11 with 59 seconds to play.
It was the stare down.
And then they annihilate the folks in Bloomington. They're probably a 7 or an 8. They're interesting, too, at 19 and 11.
I feel like the last time we talked to Brian Edwards, though, you were in on Illinois, especially because
everybody else is in on Illinois. They're okay.
Hey, we'll change gears. We'll talk combine next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Welcome back to the show, 888-638-4876. If you'd like to get involved, it's Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. He's Damon Benning. I'm Andrew Rogers, and we're happy to have you with us. 9:29, the official clock here at Hail Varsity Club. The sun is out. The sun is shining. Is it supposed to be nice today?
I think so.
It's always a nice day, though, when you get to talk with Damon Benning, right?
Not
right? That's what it is?
Depends on who you ask.
I don't know. I feel like I always have a good time. Well, whether you throw shade or not, I'm having a great time.
Shade. So we're in the low 40s up until Sunday. Sunday we may see 50. Then it chills off a little bit next week. I think we're 48 tomorrow. We're 41, or today we're 41 tomorrow.
Well, over the weekend in Milwaukee, it's supposed to snow.
Yeah.
So
as long as you get some Embiid and some Giannis.
Yep. And I watched his highlights last night, and I'm like,
Dude,
he is back.
Dude, how good is Giannis, though?
Is that freak?
That's 15 in a row. Do you fear the deer?
Yes.
That's the second time in a couple years that they've won 15 in a row, though. Isn't that weird? Like, they're regulars. He's unguardable. But that's how I feel about Embiid. You picked a good one.
Not bad.
Yeah, who'd they beat? They beat Brooklyn. I know you're not all in on the NBA, but I think the Bucks beat Brooklyn.
I can follow along, though. I play 2K.
Oh, jeez.
No, I'm just kidding. No, I watch the highlights. I just won't sit down and watch a regular season NBA game.
Oh, you're one of those.
Unless it's in person.
It's cool to hate on the NBA. I get it, especially here locally. Like, it's hard. It's hard.
It's not a hate. It's a personal preference.
It's hard to find.
If you give me NHL or NBA, I'm taking NHL all day.
That's tough. Depends on who's. Did you by any chance catch any of the Calgary Boston last night?
No.
I think shots were 58-19 in favor of Calgary. Calgary, is my former mother-in-law used to say.
Like on goal or just total shots?
Yeah. And they lost 4-3 in overtime. It was something like that.
Because
the last time I looked at it, it was 3-2 Calgary heading in the third period. It was. I'm close.
I can't wait to look this up. That'd be insane. Oh my!
I'm close. What was it?
57 shots against for Ullmark, and he had 54 saves.
Yeah. And how many? What? So what? Boston?
20.
Yeah, I knew I was close.
You're insane.
I knew it. I'm like, there's no way that's right. And they lost.
How do you shoot the puck 57 times
Get
and
it
only
on
score
net.
3 goals?
Get it on net. Boston may. And at this juncture in the season, it's not lucky, but man,
I'm not surprised when it comes to that team.
Man, do they come? They're unbelievable.
Yeah.
The Rangers are trying to do all they can to compete right now.
Listen, I kind of like them because
of all the trades they're building.
They have some depth.
Let's see if they live up to expectation, though, because they sacrificed.
I know it.
They sacrificed youth for a win.
Yeah. And it's got to come relatively soon too, because
Igor is a stud. You built now.
He was pegged as a youngin too, and he's delivered.
Oh yeah, and they've built around their lineup. You know what's crazy too, and I know we're going to talk. We'll get to the combine here in 1 minute, but I want to just make this point, and then we'll change gears.
Yeah.
I was talking with a buddy 2 days ago, and he goes, "Man, they need to realign the Western and Eastern Conference because the Eastern Conference is so much better than the Western Conference." And I'm like, well, geographically, that's how those are built. It's not like, hey, let's just grab this team, put them here.
Mm-hmm.
But, to some degree, I was like, yeah, the Eastern Conference this year in particular is the one that it's like, hey, if this team doesn't get into the playoffs, but the Winnipeg Jets do with, 8 to 10 to 15 less points, that's just the nature of the beast sometimes.
So, like, when you look at hockey odds, how many teams do you look at in the West that you think could actually win the Stanley Cup? Not that you have to convince yourself, but that you feel good that they're in the hunt to win a Stanley Cup.
Do you want me to give you a number or the team itself?
The teams. Well, you can give me a number. You can roughly give me a number. I don't expect you to know off the top.
I would say I think the Avalanche could go back to back.
How many in a row have they won?
Not sure.
6. I think they've won 6 in a row.
6 in a row.
They've been doing some good things.
Yeah, I know.
The Avalanche are that team, and probably the only team I feel confident about in the Western Conference.
And they jumped up like 4 spots in the standings just over the weekend.
Do you
over the Flames?
Do you have to convince yourself, or do you think the Vegas Knights are capable of?
I think the Knights are capable, but I just have never liked the Knights, and I don't like their roster. I don't like their lineup.
Let me give you one more.
The Kings?
No, I don't think they're capable. Now, again, this is where you don't have to convince me and give me scenarios. You just say one name, and I say yes or no. Stars or the Wild?
Stars.
Okay, so I think there's probably 3 teams in the West that can win. Now you go over to the East, and it gets hectic in a hurry.
You know why? I mean, outside of the Avalanche, who have offensive firepower, the Stars don't really have that. But why are they in that conversation? because of Jake Ottinger.
Yeah, and they know how to play, right? If they want to grind, they can grind you a little bit.
Then you have the rookie over in Vegas who's been playing unreal.
I don't even want to jinx him, but I'm going to ask it out loud. Do the Maple Leafs finally get over the hump?
Dude, I don't know. They always go all in, and I don't know how you don't win with Austin Matthews, John Tavares, Mitch Marner, William Nylander. I don't know how you don't win.
They're starting to get hot.
I thought they were going to trade for Patrick Kane. Like, I know all the reports
I don't think they can
the Rangers.
I don't think they could afford him.
Yeah, well, how much is on his contract? Like $2 million?
Yeah,
2.4.
Are you just gonna rent him in your clubhouse? Of the young, kind of not so young anymore guys? Yeah, I don't know about that.
It would have been a total Maple Leafs move.
I think you have to have a good clubhouse for him. It seems. I don't know the guy. We don't hang out. It's not like he's taking me out to eat or anything. Well, there probably were some nice steaks in Chicago, steakhouses in Chicago.
Just remember, when it comes to getting that cup, sometimes it's easier to go through a not as easy to go through a
gauntlet. Yeah,
a gauntlet like that, because your teams are going to get banged up. They're probably going to go, the full series on each series. It's going to be tough just to get to the cup out of the East.
No doubt. Hey, do you watch the combine? Like, are you an avid watcher? Like, I'll sit down in front of the TV, or is it on in the background?
All in on combines.
I think it depends on what day it is for me.
Yeah.
Like, I love Saturday because you have those skill positions, quarterback, wide receiver. I'm not as much dialed in the early week. It's probably more of a background thing for me. Like, I'm not like, hey, everything turn off, phone aside, laptop aside, I'm watching the television. But for the most part,
it's easy for me because it's in my library. So I can always go back and watch. And sometimes, I always talk about this with people. Like, do you want combines to validate what you see on film, or to have to make people go back and watch the film? And I think you always want it to validate the tape. So that's kind of what I sometimes like to go back and look for. Heck, I was paying attention a couple weeks ago when was it Chuck Smith and a couple guys who had the HBCU combines a couple weeks ago that I was paying attention to. And so I like that stuff. I'm not like an underwear Olympics workout, like have it be linear kind of guy, but I do think, I do
practice
like
facility for the Saints.
Yeah, I do like to see if athleticism meets production. So I always like to
and
have
that's
it in
kind of
library.
the conversation surrounding Trey Palmer is, he's athletic, he's fast, but the biggest knock scouts have given him are, can he catch the football in a contested environment?
So you know what else is interesting? I kind of heard this late, especially a couple weeks ago. People wonder, now this is backwards. Is he as fast in real life as what the rumors are and how he plays on tape? Because at the Senior Bowl, like, there were days that people thought he lacked explosiveness, and I was like, if he's doing it on tape, that should be what matters. So I guess it depends on. Now he has had a case of, it's not the dropsies, but consistency in terms of catching the football have been a little bit of a thing. And I think even Nebraska fans would say that.
Let's just say speed, I don't think is a factor. I know people have questioned it, but this is a guy that thinks he's going to run a low 4.3, 4.2 at the combine.
So who was the guy that Nebraska fans took to task on Twitter that was reporting from the Senior Bowl?
Yep.
And he clapped back at Nebraska fans about,
and he had a huge writer.
And he got into trying to explain
why he felt that way.
Over, like, what he felt like the hype was surrounding versus what he's actually seeing, not the fact that he wasn't.
And it's because all Nebraska fans got were clips of Trey Palmer's best stuff, and he's like, I've been sitting here all day, and I have a larger sample size to go off of why I said this.
So I thought that kind of became a thing, which is why, like, let's see what happens when he goes against Riley Moss and guys like that, who I still think Moss is going to go inside of 2 rounds.
We're going to talk wide receiving room tomorrow on the show.
3 for sure.
Matt Rule signees from his 2018 recruiting class posted the fastest 40-yard dash times, and wide receivers were a part of that room. So if you stick around and develop, you can be a pretty good Sunday guy. Coming up next, 2 for You.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Welcome back to the show, 888-638-4876. If you'd like to get involved, it's Coffee and Cream in the Morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. And now it's time to hear from you. We want to give you a chance to take home some gift cards courtesy of Hail Varsity Club. We do it every Wednesday. Normally, it's to close the show. It's 2 for You, one of DB's favorite games, one of Shaner's favorite games. Well, maybe not Shane's. He struggles with this.
Is this the game where I have to write stuff down?
Yes, Shane. This would be the game that you have to write stuff.
Well, if I knew how to write, it would probably be pretty easy. So I guess I probably got to go get paper and pen and get ready for this.
I sharpened my pencil. Do you like it? It's my non-mechanical pencil.
You are probably one of the only, I shouldn't say that because I don't know if high schoolers or grade schoolers still use it, but one of the only people I know that use a number 2 pencil.
Yeah, it's not my preference, but I was at the high school late last night, and we have a old school pencil sharpener in the coach's office, so I had to get my pencil game right. It was driving me crazy writing with a nub. Have you ever had to write with a nub? It's like
yes, but I pressed down when I write.
My other one that I had my other one that I had that was pink. I think you kind of low key shamed me for having shamed.
I never once would I have done that. It's mechanical.
That's my jam. I used to put it in my ear. People are like, why do you have a pencil or magenta or pink or purple or fuchsia pencil in your ear? It's like it's for decoration. No, I'm just playing.
It's for decoration. Okay.
So people ask me about my earrings. It's my patented answer. Decoration.
Sure you're not trying to tell us something, or?
No, I would just tell you.
Yeah. Exactly.
I like wearing them.
Fair point. Fair point. Hey, did it hurt when they got put in?
No, I didn't have them in for 20 years.
Like you let the hole form back up and then
it didn't. It never closed.
Oh, well, that's nice.
So, and I only did it because when Zoe got her ears pierced a couple years ago, she wanted somebody to do it with her. And so I said, oh, look, Daddy, I'll put these in. And before you know it, she had earrings because we waited a little too long before we got them for her. So then she was terrified. You either go super early or you wait till they're old enough to know better. We were like in the middle at 2.
Wow, that's early.
No, it's late. You want to do it early before they know any better. She's just cognizant enough of what's going on.
Is late?
Far be it from me to be the expert, but I think most people would think 2.5 is late for girls.
Maybe. I know my sisters never got their ears pierced until they were in high school.
WWBD.
It was early grade. I know they were in grade school.
Barry probably wasn't having it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
my oldest sister got a ring in the tummy.
Yeah. How'd Barry feel about that?
Well, let's just say he's like, I wouldn't have done that. No, she has since had that removed. I think that's closed up. I don't know. Talking rings, piercings, and everything else here on the show this morning.
Oh, shoot, Shane, play the music.
Well, let's talk about somebody first before we play the music.
Okay.
Who do we need to talk about before we play this game?
Trent?
Nope. Well, Trenton, maybe he'll call in. I was thinking Dingman's Collision Center.
Oh, yeah, my faves. Yeah, Dingman's Collision Center. I wonder if Darcy's back from vacation. She can see that the cars are piling up on the 120th Street location because apparently the ice and the snow got some folks the last couple of weeks. So if that's you, make sure you stop into Dingman's Collision Center. So good at what they do. My favorite was actually, kind of talked me down off the ledge from being there after my free oil change. It ended up being worth 2 tires. So they can do that for you. It's not just a DB thing. They are good to you. Again, 4 great locations. The main locale where they'll do everything is on 120th and Maple, so make sure you stop on by. Don't let the cars out front discourage you. Sometimes they're waiting on parts, so you never know, like if that's work that they've got to do right now. Just stop in and ask the questions. And locally owned and operated over 25 years. That's a quarter of a century. When you do it that long, you're obviously pretty good and well trusted at what you do. It's Dingman's.
Hey, the bosses are probably going to be happy that nobody called in because we aren't going to give away money. Yeah, but I want to give away money today. So give us a call, 888-638-4876.
I want somebody to win just so they can have the PB&J wings.
So that they can tell you how it is?
Well, I felt like we had an educational moment with the wings yesterday. Did I change your world? I changed Shane's world. Going from breaded to non-breaded.
You did a while back because I've had the breaded before, but not until you told me about it. Probably.
Did you get them with no sauce?
Yeah, sauce on the side.
Shane called it a game changer.
It is a game changer.
It
traps in the heat. You pull it apart, and it's almost a little fried chicken like.
Yeah, and they use their own. You
Or
dip
bread.
it in the batter. They use their own homemade recipe.
You spoke it into existence. Let's go to line 1. Trent on the show with us.
It's been a couple of weeks. Trent, what are you making a lot of money? Like, where have you been?
Trent, where have you been, man?
It's like, look at man.
Where have I been?
I'm
working.
delivering tools
Working.
to doctors, man. Like I'm busy.
Trent, do you remember when
I'm out
we
here
interrupted
filling
your
mine.
day when you were saving a life because Shane called the wrong number?
Yeah, that's good. Good time.
Man, you ready to play?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's make some money.
Let's do it. Pick 2 people.
I'm gonna stick with Andrew and DB.
Let's go.
Good call. Good call. Okay,
Good
DB, you ready to go?
Shut up, Shane.
I will do that.
DB,
I'm ready.
something that comes in pairs.
Okay.
Someone you'd see at Disney World.
Okay.
A common Lenten promise or something that people would give up. Like a common thing.
Okay.
And a board game.
If we don't go 4 for 4, it's your fault. I'm just gonna go.
Oh no! Oh no!
I'm just
That's
telling you.
whose fault it is.
I'm just telling you.
Trent, how you feeling?
I like these.
Yeah, it's
I don't know.
good
All right,
questions.
Trent. All we need is 2, and then we can worry about doubling down here in a few. DB, you ready?
I'm ready.
Something that comes in pairs. 3, 2, 1.
Shoes. It's close. I would take either.
Yeah.
I would take either.
Shucks.
Now I
Okay.
gotta go 3 for 4.
Someone you'd see at Disney World. 3, 2, 1.
Mickey Mouse. All right, Shane, that's a ding. That's for your favorite, Darcy. Can I get a ding? All right, we can't get a ding. Shane's not paying attention.
There it
Thank
is.
you, Shane.
Hey, a Lenten promise or something common to give up for Lent. 3, 2, 1.
Sweets.
All right. Trent,
Love it.
you have that $10 gift
Hey.
card. Double or nothing for $20. Yes or no?
Is this a question? Double down. Let's go.
All right, DB, you ready?
I'm ready.
A board game. 3, 2, 1.
Monopoly. Let's go.
Let's go.
Hey, $20 to
Boy.
you. Trent will have the gift card at the hostess stand up front whenever you want to come by.
He's
and,
constantly
pick it up.
eating for free. So you realize that's 7 out of the last 8 that you and I have gotten because we went 4 for 4 last
That is
week.
true. That is true. And that first question, 50-50.
Yeah, that was tough. I mean, as long as Trent gets to eat for free.
$20, that's like
Yeah,
eating
that
twice.
was a tough one though. I think I would have gone socks, but
Oh, yep, because I had the right answer. That a boy, Trent.
He didn't want to hurt my feelings.
Boy. Hey, Trent, thanks for calling, man. We appreciate it. You
Thanks,
guys want to
Trent.
do one more, at least
I
for Shane
appreciate
before
it.
this thing closes up?
Yeah, Shane, do you want to do one or do you want to get Trent's info?
I don't need Trent's info.
All right.
He's
All right.
on speed dial for
How
that.
about you and Shane play this next one?
Can I tell you what I had for my answers on the other one?
Yeah, Shane, tell us.
Well, I had a pair of ears.
Pardon?
Okay.
Oh my God.
I had Mickey.
Okay.
I had meat. Isn't that the thing that everybody gives up
Well,
on?
no, you don't give up meat for Lent. You just fast from eating meat on Friday.
See, I don't give anything up for Lent.
My man
I
said
go,
ears.
I double down.
My man said ears. Are we going to bury the lead?
I know.
And I said the game of life.
The game of life. Okay, good thing you didn't play. Let's
Things
play
that
this
come
time,
in
though,
pairs.
DB.
Ears.
Well,
All
they
right.
do.
You guys ready?
I guess.
Here we go. Start the music, Shaner.
Wow.
A football movie.
Oh, come on. Are you serious?
I am serious, and don't call me Shirley.
Oh, boy. Okay. Wow. Right out of the gates, huh? Okay.
Shane, you good?
Do I have my mic on? Yeah, I'm good.
A coordinator at Nebraska.
He doesn't know. Like currently?
Currently.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. I don't know.
You wouldn't know?
Not a chance.
All right.
Not a
Should
chance.
we replace the question?
Should I say Bob Diaco? He was in the news yesterday.
Shane, an energy drink brand.
Okay, that's fair. All right.
A former Nebraska running back.
Okay.
Wow. He's going to overthink it. Anyway, go, Shane.
Answer the question. Why so blank?
I'm sorry?
Answer this. Why so blank?
Why so blank?
Got it. Why so? And then you say what the word is.
All right, let's do it.
A football movie. 3, 2, 1.
Remember the
Given
Titans.
Sunday.
I would have said remember the Titans.
Fudge. That's probably me.
An energy drink brand. 3, 2, 1.
Red Bull.
Yeah. 1 for 2. A former Nebraska running back. 3, 2, 1.
Damon.
Me.
Yes. Okay. Good, Shane. Good. And why so
Sad.
Serious.
serious is the right answer. Thank you all
Aren't
for
you
joining us.
Wait a minute. Aren't you like you're a Joker guy, right? Like comic books?
Mm-hmm. That was the right answer. Why so
Why
serious?
so sad? God, he drives me. I'm still tripping off a pair of ears.
Pair of ears. Well,
Hey, things that come in pairs.
Don't you have a pair of ears?
Yeah, well,
I have
yes.
ears. I don't have a pair of ears. I have ears.
Things that,
You have 2 ears, so you have a pair. You have a pair of ears.
So you
What
have a
if
pair
you-
of eyes?
I would have even
You have a
taken
pair of
like
eyes.
aces, and that would have been. I'd have given him a point for
Oh, yeah,
creativity.
not
Yeah,
bad.
pair of aces would have been good, but I didn't have
The right
creativity.
answer was socks.
Yeah, because Bent Trent said socks too.
2 out of 3.
That's fine.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. We'll be back tomorrow. We love having fun with you. We hope you have fun too. It's Coffee and Cream in the Morning.
Clear.